Shiro was an average salaryman in modern-day Japan, living a soulless life where he had the same routine every single day while always yearning for more. Every morning he woke up and took a bus to the office, worked till late in the evening before returning back to his dingy apartment where he would spend the rest of the time watching TikTok brain rot. He always wanted more out of his life, and his wishes finally come true. When one night he wakes up to find himself in a white void with nothing to see, his eyes soon focus, and he finds out that he is sitting in front of a white-haired K-pop idol who claims that he is God himself. Shiro isn't a 13-year-old girl though, so he sits there unimpressed, asking where exactly he is. The K-pop god reveals that Shiro had died and is currently in a limbo where his soul is about to disappear forever, but God is willing to give him an option. God reveals that he can send him down to a different fantasy world called Madius if he wants, where he can relive his life as anyone he wants. This immediately grabs Shiro's attention, who felt like this was a dream come true. The god immediately takes out a clipboard and starts writing down the special skills that he would integrate within Shiro. And soon the time runs out and Shiro is sent to the fantasy world of Madius. When Shiro wakes up again, he finds himself in the middle of a forest and is overjoyed at the prospect of getting a second chance at life. He immediately gets up and starts exploring the world and soon finds his way out of the forest where he spots a small village at a distance. He immediately wants to check out what cool things he could find there, but decides that if he shows up without any money, people will think he is shady and won't even give him anything to eat. Suddenly, he remembers God telling him that he will have boosted scouting skills, which he could use to find expensive items and ingredients to sell it for a good sum. He stands up confidently with a stick in his hands and shouts to activate the magic, only to realize that nothing happened. This scares him, as he wonders whether the god just scammed him, but soon he figures out that he was simply not using the correct word for it. When he uses the word search, the scouting magic activates, immediately showing him the locations of every single collectible item in the forest. He realizes that this ability is really handy, and then tries to use another one of his abilities, which lets him gain more information about that particular item. He tries a combination of words, when finally the word scan helps him activate his abilities, and he manages to get more information about the type of things he could gather. Just like you at a buffet, Shiro grabs every single thing he could and analyzes their levels before putting it all in his side bag, which is also magical and lets him store as much stuff as possible without any shady subscription fee. With all the materials gathered safely in his tote bag, he decides to move towards the village. By the time sun starts setting over the horizon, Shiro finally reaches the main gate of the village, which was being guarded by a lone guard. Shiro greets the man, which wakes him up from his sleep, and it turns out that the people of this village are all short kings, making Shiro the tallest guy here, which means lots of bitches for him. The guard asks whether Shiro is a swordsman or a knight, but is surprised to know that Shiro is primarily a gatherer, which is not very common in this world. The guard opens the door for Shiro and tells him to find the main shop at the village center, which usually deals with stuff like this. Shiro enters the peaceful village and starts moving through the wide path where lots of villagers were staring at him from afar, wondering who this new stranger was. Shiro, however, makes a beeline for the main shop and enters the dark store. The man behind the counter greets him warmly and asks what exactly he wants to sell. Shiro takes out an oval smooth rock, which the shopkeeper grabs and immediately recognizes to be anteater poop. He claims that he has never seen such a perfect specimen and tells Shiro that he would love to buy it from him for 5 silver coins. He realizes that 5 silver coins is basically 350 bucks, which is more money than most of you will ever see. He immediately agrees to the deal, which makes the shopkeeper really happy as he keeps rubbing up and down his face. The shopkeeper asks whether Shiro has anything else to sell, and Shiro immediately puts out all the stuff he hoarded from the forest. The shopkeeper is absolutely stunned at the sight of so many items of such great quality, and asks Shiro why would he come to a small village like this to sell such incredible items which can get him a lot of money in any big city. Shiro immediately lies that he is just a traveler who has been collecting stuff and traveling to different parts of the country. The shopkeeper recognizes his talent though, and gives him a job to collect some valuable gems from the icy mountains nearby, where he might also come across some monsters. Shiro wasn't so sure whether he wanted to go for a mission like this right now, but the shopkeeper promises to pay 20 grand for the gems, which leaves him with no options but to accept. With that, he bids the shopkeeper farewell and roams around the village, finally finding an inn for himself. He gets a comfortable room inside and lays on the hard bed, tired from the day's work. wishing that he could take a bath and get the dirt and grime off of him. Just then, there is a knock at the door and a young girl enters the room with a tub filled with water for him to wash himself. Shiro, however, has only ever taken showers and asks what the hell is he supposed to do with this shit. The girl tells him that he is stinky and needs to wash himself with a damp towel to get cleaned, but Shiro asks whether they have a shower instead. The girl gets confused at this and tells Shiro that they have no such things since only the nobles get to take a proper bath while the rest are supposed to clean themselves with water and a towel. Shiro can't believe that something as basic as a bath is gatekept from the commoners, but the girl tells him that there are some mages who are able to perform magic and give other people baths in exchange for money. This information gives Shiro a sudden idea, and he pushes the girl out of the room after handing her the money with some tip. After closing the door, Shiro starts practicing his spells and finally manages to use a spell which makes him a waterbender, allowing him to take the much-needed bath. Finally, after freshening up, he lays down on the bed from exhaustion, still missing his showers, but decides to sleep so he can get an early start on the day. The next morning, he wakes up at the crack of dawn and moves towards the forest looking for all sorts of things to gather. While searching for some mushrooms, he soon spots a weird-looking mark coming from one of the bushes, so he goes in to investigate, only to find a decomposed corpse on the ground. He gets jump-scared and falls flat on his before catching his breath and going for a better look. He figures out that this guy was a security corps member who must have died fighting some monsters. He wonders whether he should just leave the area, but decides otherwise. He takes the body and buries it deep within the ground before putting his sword as a headstone for the grave of the fallen man. With that out of the way, he decides to make some supper, and since the sun was already setting, he first creates a magical barrier around him and then sits on the ground before putting a pot over an open fire. Since he is not an idiot sandwich, he decides to make his own dinner with some wild green veggies that he found and some meat that he had. He makes a stew out of the ingredients, which turns out to be super tasty, ending the night on a high note. The next morning, he moves towards the haunted forest, which is completely crowded by dead trees and fog, making it difficult to see even in daylight. He uses his light magic to see and enters inside the forest, knowing that this place is known to have loads of monsters, but as far as he can see, there is nothing living present inside the forest. He starts collecting anything of value, and soon he is done with the place and decides to exit. He spots the light at the exit and races towards it, not knowing that he was rushing straight towards a dangerous ledge. He ends up falling down the cavern and would have surely died if not for his quick thinking as he uses flight magic to regain control and starts floating mid-air. He touches the ground softly and lets out a sigh of relief, realizing how close he came to death, deciding to take things more seriously and be more careful from now on. He again uses his light magic inside the cave, and to his surprise, the area is filled with different kinds of ores. He quickly gets out a small hammer and gets to work, chiseling away the ores from the surrounding rocks, soon filling his bag up with a decent amount. He notices another ore at a distance, but a sudden earthquake reminds him that he can't spend much time here, so he quickly uses his fireball magic to blast away at the rock so he could get the ore quicker. To his delight, this ore turns out to be the mithril ore which the shopkeeper wanted, so he quickly pockets it, but decides to go in further even after another earthquake hit. After a while, he notices some blue light coming from the end of the tunnel, so he follows it, only to find an opening with the bluest lake he has ever seen in the middle of it. He quickly descends down the rocks to scan the lake, which turns out to be SS tier, magical water. This is by far the coolest thing that he has found so far, so he immediately decides that he must take some of it back with him. But he starts wondering whether he has a canteen big enough to hold water, and whether it would start leaking. Before he could decide anything though, a huge black dragon emerges from the depths, spraying water everywhere and drenching Shiro as well, as he screams, asking who woke him from his deep sleep. Shiro has seen enough though, and doesn't even flinch before going back to his default state as a soulless salaryman who always bowed to every single person in his life. He bows down to the dragon, apologizing for entering its lair, but the dragon finds it hilarious, since he has never seen a man of such nerves, and asks who exactly is he. Shiro replies that he is a normal human, which the dragon refuses to believe since he can sense a huge amount of magical energy flowing through Shiro, which is almost on par with the magical energy in the dragons itself. The dragon asks Shiro whether he could help him, since only someone with an incredible amount of magic could help him in the situation which he is stuck in. He claims that he has an egg which is not hatching even though it's been a very long time, and asks whether Shiro could help him with it. He claims that he won't ask him to do it for free, and simply touches the water from which dozens of huge mithril ores emerge. Shiro immediately agrees to the arrangement, so the dragon takes out a black egg and throws it towards Shiro. Shiro grabs the egg, trying to listen for a heartbeat before wondering what exactly is he supposed to do with it. Suddenly, he remembers that eggs are supposed to be warm, so he uses his heat magic to instill warmth in the shell, which suddenly starts sucking out the energy from Shiro, making him wonder whether it was a scam and whether he is about to die. He blacks out and finds himself surrounded by warm water, where another K-pop god with black hair appears, claiming that Shiro has started doing which is disrupting the flow of this world. Shiro asks whether he is dead, but the god replies that not yet, and with that, Shiro returns back to his senses, waking up in darkness. He uses his light magic only to find out that the baby dragon has successfully hatched out of its shell. The dragon seems overjoyed while the baby dragon gets his footing on the ground. The dragon thanks Shiro for his help and asks him to give it a name. Like an idiot, Shiro decides to call the baby dragon B, after which the dragon completely shocks Shiro by saying that from now on B is going to stay with Shiro himself. Shiro can't believe that something so incredibly rare and beautiful could be bound to him. But the big black dragon tells him that he is already super strong and can surely protect the baby. With that, the dragon disappears beneath the surface of water, leaving Shiro and B to continue their journey together. Shiro and B soon exit the cave, and it is already evening by then. B starts flying around happily because it is the first time she is seeing the outside world, and Shiro realizes that it will get dark soon. He decides to set up camp nearby and then fills a glass with the magical water from the lake. The ancient dragon used his magic to connect Shiro's magic bag to the lake, because the magical water is absolutely necessary for B's growth. She quickly finishes one glass and then asks for another, and Shiro pours her a refill. However, B kindly hands it to him because she wants him to drink the nutritious water and be happy as well. After that, Shiro uses some magic stones to create a barrier, skipping the hassle of speaking the full spells out loud. He knows that magic stones are really rare in this world after reading a book he bought from Shakespeare, but that is not an issue for him because he can create magic stones easily. He concentrates heat magic in his palm and creates a magic stone that creates a controlled flame for cooking food. With the fire on, Shiro begins preparing meat stew and B starts drooling uncontrollably on seeing it. Shiro thinks that she should be able to digest some stew and pours her a bowl. He warns her that it is too hot, but B gulps it down quickly and burns her tongue, which is pretty pathetic for a dragon. Shiro has to blow on the stew to make it cool enough for her to drink, and B drinks it till she is full and exhausted. Shiro finds her really cute, but then he asks her if she doesn't miss her dad at all. B immediately jumps over to hug him to tell him that she is happy to be with him. Shiro checks out her stats and finds that she is already at rank B and has some impressive gifts. He is shocked to read that, but thinks that no matter how strong she is, B is still a kid and she needs an adult to guide her. He begins telling her that even if she is stronger than him, she should not do anything reckless and listen to him. But the baby dragon is too sleepy, and she starts snoring mid-lecture. On seeing her sleep, Shiro thinks that he got a cute partner, but not in the sense he asked the K-pop god, and wonders if the god did this on purpose. The next morning, Shiro climbs up the cliff he fell from yesterday and reaches the forest. To his surprise, the forest looks completely different, and he thinks that it must be one of the quirky things that happen in this world. As B starts exploring the nearby area, Shiro decides to search for useful items and finds a bunch of new herbs. Suddenly, he feels a strange tingling, and the very next moment, B comes flying towards him, visibly scared of something. Shiro immediately searches for monsters nearby, and a bunch of pointers appear on the radar. That is surprising because he didn't find any monsters on the previous day and wonders if his bad smell that was repelling the monsters has been washed away. He is not afraid to fight the monsters because he might get some good materials after defeating them. However, the danger is not only in the forest, and soon a C-rank rock falcon appears behind him. B is terrified of the ferocious-looking creature, but Shiro finds it cute compared to the ancient dragon. As he reads the monster's description, he finds that its meat is tasty, and that is enough for him to hunt the monster. He first creates a shield and then shoots ice spikes at the rock falcon, bringing it down instantly. Shiro is happy that he got one ingredient, but then B points out to the monsters coming from the forest. He turns around to find wolves with snakes for tails and decides to face them in close combat. He casts enchantment spells to make his body lighter and faster, so when the first wolf attacks him, he dodges it by jumping high in the air. He then makes his body ultra hard with magic and lands a kick to the first wolf's head, immediately unaliving it. The other wolves attack him, but Shiro is too fast for them. He dodges their attacks and takes them out using powerful and swift kicks. Shiro collects meat from all monsters, but soon after that, he spots more monsters coming from the forest. He is annoyed now because he can't keep fighting forever, so Bee decides to help him. She tries flying while carrying him and Shiro thinks that she can't do it. However, Bee uses her girl power to lift him up and Shiro decides to help her by reducing his weight. He casts a spell to make himself lighter, but Bee was not expecting that and suddenly shoots high up in the sky. Shiro panics and tells her that she is flying too high, and the surprised Bee drops him. Shiro starts screaming as he falls to the ground, but the trees act as a cushion and he lands safely. Bee flies after him and begins licking his face, and Shiro is low-key annoyed by her. As he gets up, he finds they have come out of the forest, because Bee was faster than a fighter jet. He thanks her for helping him and asks her to hold back her power a little bit the next time because he is much more fragile than her. But Bee doesn't understand those complicated words and hugs him tightly, breaking a couple ribs. After that, they resume their journey to the village and Shiro starts waving around a branch he found in his backpack. He tells Bee that it is the branch of the legendary tree Yggdrasil that is said to embody the world itself, but it is currently asleep. Well, Bee knows how to wake up the sleeping branch, and she breathes out a cloud of stinky gas that turns the tiny branch into a staff. Shiro is shocked to see this and wonders if a gatherer like him can even use a staff. He doesn't want people to think that he is a normie wizard or something, but his thoughts are disrupted when he hears a loud roar. Shiro immediately gets alert and ready to fight, but Bee flies towards the direction of the roar, making him worry about her. Shiro follows her and finds her circling a tree. As soon as he reaches the tree, he finds a ragged and exhausted elf and asks her if she was attacked by the monster. The elf refuses and suddenly her stomach makes the loud roaring sound that had Shiro panicking. The elf woman tells him that she hasn't eaten anything in 3 days and Shiro can't believe that the terrifying roar is actually coming from her stomach. She asks for water, and he immediately hands her his bottle that she empties in one go. The water makes her feel better, but it doesn't do anything to ease her hunger and Shiro begins looking for a lunchbox that he brought along. He offers the lunchbox to the elf girl who greedily devours it and then shoots a hyperbeam of joy, saying that the food is so delicious that she feels like she is going to heaven. Shiro is taken aback because he never thought elves could behave so uncivilized, but he tells her that the food tastes good just because she has been starving for 3 days. He then asks her how could she run out of food so quickly when there is a village not so far away from her location. She gets uncomfortable with the question and then Shiro starts roasting her, saying that even noobs who don't know anything carry a lunchbox with them on journeys. The elf gets pissed and gets close to quarrel with him, but Shiro immediately moves back because she stinks. This racist with OCD says that he thought that elves would smell like peppermint and strawberries, but she smells like fresh manure. The elf gets angry at him and says she couldn't clean herself because she had to camp out for many days. She gets ready to leave quickly after that, thanking Shiro for the food, but telling him that it is gay to make fun of someone they just met. She runs away with that and Shiro is left disappointed after his first encounter with an elf. Anyway, he gets back to gathering materials and then exits the forest. Bee spots a carriage coming towards them from over a mile away and Shiro is really impressed by that. Soon, the carriage comes close enough and Shiro is awestruck on seeing a unicorn pulling it. The merchant driving the carriage is surprised to see him as well and asks what he is doing here. Shiro tells him that he is heading to the Tormi village on foot, and the merchant's family peek out of the carriage to see who is outside. The man looks at Shiro's staff and asks if he is a wizard or something, and he nervously replies that he is just a gatherer. That is more impressive because gathering experts are quite rare in this world. The man then invites Shiro to ride with them because they are also going to the Tormi village. He asks him if it will be fine for someone as tall and heavy as him to ride the carriage, but the man has no problem with that at all. Shiro takes up his offer and enters the carriage, learning that the kids find him amusing because he is extremely tall. As Shiro thanks the family for giving him a ride, they tell him it is not a big deal because people in this region always help each other out. They are really friendly towards him, and Shiro feels that they are too trusting for their own good. He asks them what they would do if he were a bandit and then tries to scare the kids, but the boy tells him that he can't be a bandit because the bell didn't ring. Shiro doesn't understand, so the woman shows him a bell with a magic crystal inside it that rings when a bad person is nearby. Shiro is impressed by this idea and thinks he can make the magic crystal himself too. He suddenly remembers that he hasn't introduced himself, so he tells the family about himself, and they introduce themselves too. The man driving the carriage is Plum, his wife is named Eliza, and their kids are called Yunin and Kane. While they are exchanging greetings, B suddenly starts making noises, and the kids notice that the sound is coming from Shiro's back. They are eager to see what he is hiding under his coat, and Shiro gets nervous, telling him that it is a rare monster, so they might be shocked on seeing it. Eliza tells him that it is not a big deal because adventurers usually have monsters accompanying them. This statement gives Shiro the confidence to let B out, but only after warning her not to bite anyone. The kids are smitten by B's cuteness, but the parents are surprised because dragons are quite rare monsters. Plum asks Shiro if he is a dragon knight since he has a pet dragon, and he explains that he coincidentally found a dragon egg and hatched it. But that is even more shocking for Plum and Eliza. They say that dragon knights are really hard to see and dragons are even more rare. Shiro gets curious about dragon knights now, and based on the anime he saw in the past life, he thinks they must be real badasses. Soon, night arrives and the family decides to set up camp. Shiro creates light and then places magic stones around the campsite to create a barrier. He tells everyone that the magic stones will keep the monsters away, but if something happens, B will alert them. The family puts their full trust in B instead of Shiro and the magic stones, and he is low-key disappointed. After that, Eliza gets ready to prepare dinner, but Shiro asks her to let him cook instead. He pulls out the cooking utensils and ingredients from his magic bag, which is another surprise for the family. He then prepares food with the ingredients he found today, and everyone is amazed by the taste. Plum even starts crying because he was bored to death after eating dried meat every single day of the journey. He says that Shiro is surely a magician, and he is the magician of taste. Everyone starts laughing at this, and then they sing and dance before going to sleep. This is a new experience for Shiro, who used to eat dinner by himself on Earth, and he feels that having company while eating is a really great thing. By the time dawn breaks, Plum is already at work, cleaning the reins and the carriage, while the kids stay in their dreamy world, with B tucked in between them. Shiro is already up and about as well and sits on the ground, passing time as he cleans his scissors to a shine. Eliza also emerges from the carriage after setting everything up and greets Shiro, claiming that anyone who takes care of their tools well makes a good adventurer. Shiro realizes that lately he has been really enjoying his life, and even though he got the Gatherer class by complete chance, maybe he is naturally good at it. Soon enough they get ready to continue their journey, but this time, Shiro asks whether he could take the reins for a bit, and Plum gladly agrees. Soon he sat on the front seat alongside Plum, and they continued moving ahead without any trouble. The unicorn seems to be a very intelligent beast as it listens and responds to Shiro's every command. Soon B also wakes up properly and immediately flies out to Shiro before settling near his legs. After an easy journey of another couple of hours, they finally see the first glimpse of the Tormi village, and soon they arrive at the front gate. Shiro gets off right there, while Plum and his family thank him for the wonderful time they had with him before moving on. The guard seems to know who Plum is as he comments that Plum always brings the spring with him. This interests Shiro, and he asks the guard what exactly Plum does, and the guard replies that Plum and his family chase after the warmer regions as he is a weaver by trade. So whenever Plum arrives in this village, that means that the warm spring and summers are around as well. According to the guard, there has been fewer game to hunt in these areas recently as well, which makes Shiro realize why Plum was so happy with the food. He thanks the god for giving him the ability to be a good gatherer, as he never really has to think about finding food or money. A little while later he goes in to meet with the shopkeeper who assigned him the quest, and shows him all the spoils that he got. The shopkeeper spends a good amount of time viewing the items one by one, but he seems particularly interested in one of the rocks. Soon he turns towards Shiro, asking where he found this particular rock, as this is not just a mithril ore, but it is a magical mithril ore. Shiro has no idea about it, but the shopkeeper claims that this is the stuff of legends. This finally shakes Shiro, who asks whether it's expensive, and the shopkeeper tries to make him realize the scale of this find by telling him that this stone contains an immense amount of concentrated mana, and even just 2 or 3 stones would be enough to replace all the magic stones in this kingdom. Shiro is shocked by this, but doesn't want to reveal his special skill. so he claims that he just randomly found it. The shopkeeper doesn't buy it though, claiming that even if he found it randomly, he definitely has a lot of skill alongside a good amount of luck. He tells Shiro that his skills are wasted here and that he should move towards the next big city from this village known as Belkame. There he will find people who actually have the funds to buy stuff like this, and this will also help him learn more about this world. He also suggests he join a guild who could provide him with advanced level knowledge, which will definitely help him in adventures further on. Later that night he unwinds in his room and starts searching more about guilds and adventurers, realizing that being an adventurer can actually be really beneficial for him, but he is in no hurry. He decides that his next step would be to leave for game and join a guild, but for now he is going to stay around Tormy for a while. A couple days pass by, during which he offers the beast that he killed a couple days ago to be cooked for the entire village. Since there was a shortage of game, everyone loved the taste of meat and salmonella probably, but even the village baddies were enjoying themselves, so mission successful. He spends some more days roaming around the village gathering stuff, but soon enough gets ready to depart. The nice old lady gives him a bunch of seasonings and spices to take along with him for the journey before telling him that the villagers would love to have him for longer as they have all grown used to him being around. Shiro promises to return one day, but for now he needs to move ahead in his journey to make sure he is properly provisioned. The old lady provides him with a bunch of packed home-made meals since the journey to Belkame is long, which is going to take him nearly 1 month to complete. She tells him to come back to this village if he ever gets homesick, and Shiro thanks her before heading back to his room. He puts B to sleep for the long journey tomorrow and was about to lay down for the night as well, when he thinks about how nice the village has been to him till now, and thinks about how he should probably give something in return as well. With that, he gets up from his bed and moves towards the table where he looks at the lantern and the magical mithril stone. With that, he thinks about how the village guard has to stay outside day in and day out just to make sure no monsters get into the village. So he uses his creativity and the magic stone's mana to fuse the lantern and create a new magical item. The next morning, when he was ready to leave, the entire village came to see him off for his journey. He realizes how this small village has become his actual home now, which he will definitely return to. So he offers them the magical item he created. He tells the guard that this item can cast a magical barrier around them, which will protect them from any harmful monsters who come near them. The village is beyond grateful for such an amazing gift, but the shopkeeper takes the item in his hands and examines it, before asking Shiro if he used the magic mithril stone for it. He opens the bottom and takes it out, only to find the stone right there. But before he could resist and tell Shiro to take the stone along with him, Shiro runs away, telling the shopkeeper to keep it for the village. The entire village waves him off as his journey finally starts anew. The morning air is crisp on his face as he wanders through the open fields, enjoying the beautiful day, when suddenly he runs into a huge crab monster. At first it scares the crap out of him, but he decides to check the stats of the beast, realizing that it's a C-ranked monster, which means that it shouldn't be too difficult to deal with. He also notices that the crab is supposed to be edible, which gets his mouth watering as he tells B that crab meat is really delicious. He gets ready for the fight and uses his magic to harden his body. But before he could even plan an attack, B goes ahead and uses his supersonic blast, which immediately downs it. Before he could chop it up though, 2 more crabs appeared around him, moving side to side. He starts formulating a plan, thinking that the crabs could only move sideways, which he could use to his advantage. But to his horror, the crabs immediately run straight at him. Without any time to dodge the attack, he wonders whether this is where his journey ends. But thankfully B is not as incompetent as him and grabs him by the collar before lifting him up in the air, while the 2 crabs collide with each other violently. Both the crabs die instantly. But the danger is not over yet, as the first one gets up and starts running towards him once again. Shiro, however, is better prepared this time and grabs out his staff before hitting a home run, killing the monster instantly. That evening they get ready for a hearty dinner, so Shiro uses his enchantments to reinforce his hand, using it to slice off the crab legs before putting them all in a pot and adding water alongside other spices to create a thick stew. Once the meat was done, they cracked open the shell and took their first bite of a crab in this new world, loving the flavors immensely. Shiro is pleased with himself as he tells B how amazing he feels and how he can't wait for them to travel around more so they can taste more flavors of this wonderful whole world. Apparently, the villagers were lying jerks, as I am pretty sure it didn't take him a month to reach the city of Belt, which is a huge protected structure surrounded on one side by water. He gets in line alongside other peasants to enter the city, but realizing that he might stand out, he uses his magic to make his magic bag become normal, and even tells B to hide for a while. Soon he is called by the immigration department, where the Tsei checks his luggage and his ID to make sure he is not there to topple any towers. They seem very lax, though, as they simply use a basic magic scan to check whether he has any criminal record, while the woman checks his bag but finds nothing out of the ordinary. Shiro is interested in knowing how his stats look to other people, but he realizes that they must look normal, as the god made sure that he wouldn't stick out like a sore thumb. The guy tells him that he seems to be all clear, but he has a certain blessing of the dragon which is confusing them. Shiro decides to reveal the truth and shows B to them, who are immediately taken by its cuteness, but the Tsei agent tells him to put a tag on the dragon since they can't have unidentified nukes floating around. Shiro uses a bracelet that he had and puts it around B's tail, which marks their immigration complete, and they are welcomed into the city. He is immediately taken by the bustling city as people of all races walk together to their destinations, buying food, getting armor, going to training halls, etc. He walks around in awe, before noticing the guild hall at a distance. He makes his way straight towards the Adventurers Guild and enters the hall to find a beautiful place filled with all kinds of warriors and mates. Suddenly, he is approached by Aria, a bunny girl senpai who welcomes him to the guild and asks whether he would like to register himself here. Shiro nods and follows her to the desk, where she takes down all his information and asks whether he has had any previous combat experiences. Shiro replies that he hasn't had much experience, but he had fought a weird bird, some snake wolves, and a bunch of huge crabs. Aria looks confused and asks whether he has any proof for all this, so this idiot reaches into his doryman pocket and pulls out an entire dead crab before plopping it on the table, causing it to shatter under the weight. Aria gets scared and runs outside, while all the people in the guild gather around to see what's happened. One of the furries there uses his special skill to check Shiro and tells Air that she should calm down, as Shiro doesn't seem to be a dangerous person. Shiro is a little confused at this, but the furry explains that he has a special ability which lets him see the intentions of each person. If he showed up in red, that would mean that he wants to cause trouble, but since he turned out to be blue, he should be fine. Shiro is glad for that, but the furry asks why exactly is he carrying around a dead crab. Shiro replies to them that obviously he wants to eat it, as only an idiot would waste good crab meat. But this scandalizes the guild members, as it doesn't seem like people of this world eat crabs, but they are still more accepting than America under Trump, so they let him live as he wants. With that, the furry tells Aria that she should finish up his registration. He asks Shiro whether he has any partners, and Shiro replies that his only partner is his dragon B for now. This really shocks the onlookers, as they haven't seen many dragons in their life, and for a person to be a gatherer, which in itself is a rare class, and then to have a super rare beast is almost impossible. Yet Shiro stands there. He immediately starts getting all the attention as a couple of guilds start inviting him to their parties. Aria decides to take him to the next room for some privacy, but while Shiro was expecting a handy beneath the table, all he got was a guild's mark on this application, proving that he is an actual adventurer. With that, his application is complete, and Aria awards him with a copper bracelet, denoting his rank as F, which is where every new member must start. Shiro doesn't mind, though, as he starts imagining all the amazing adventures he would get to go on now. It's been half a month since Shiro's arrival in this city, and he has already become a favorite. He constantly brings really good quality items that sell in no time, marking him as the best gatherer of the city by far. This results in him getting even more jobs where clients are specifically asking for him in particular, since he doesn't charge an exorbitant fee, but gives them items that make their money worth. He returns back to the guild once again, dropping the fresh load of magic mushrooms that he got from Mike Tyson. The beastman behind the desk inspects the mushrooms, since he knows Mike only prefers the best mushrooms, or he would bite someone's ears off. With Shiro, however, he doesn't really have to worry, since the mushrooms are always top-notch. Before he could even pay him, though, Aria sneaks into the room with a bunch of more quests for him, claiming that they have gotten a lot of orders that are asking for Shiro in particular as the gatherer. Shiro looks at the number of quests she was holding up in her hands and tells her that he can't possibly do it all at once, so he takes half of them, while Aria keeps the other half for safekeeping. With that out of the way, Shiro decides to unwind a little and heads towards the bathhouse to have a lovely warm soak, which completely sucks the pain out of his body. He lets out a sigh of relief as the warm water caresses his body like a lover's kiss, while even B seems to be enjoying himself as he swims around in the water, free of any worries. Shiro remembers how disgusting and dirty the bath water used to be when he first came here, but thanks to his magic, he is able to recycle some clean warm water, giving a gift to the people of this guild. His thoughts are broken by a silver-colored lizard man named Clay who enters the bathhouse, greeting Shiro and asking how he has been. Shiro replies that he is fine before asking why he is here, since he is usually adventuring somewhere during this time. Clay walks into the bath beside Shiro, replying that he wouldn't have been here at this time either, but his old scars have been acting up, which was causing him a lot of irritation, so he came here to have the warm water soothe them down a little. He then turns his attention towards Shiro, claiming that he recently heard some rumors that Shiro can use healing magic, as he apparently used his magic to heal a poor sick man from the slums. Shiro simply smiles, replying that he just replicated something that he saw before once. Clay then asks whether he took any money from the slum dweller, but already knows the answer that he wouldn't charge the poor man anything. He tells Shiro that if he wanted to, he could make a killing, using his healing magic to treat people, since healers are in great demand at all times. But Shiro wonders whether the healers who charge copious amounts of money for an X-ray would start hating him. Clay simply laughs, asking whether he got the notice to increase his rank. But Shiro replies that he is happy the way things are right now, and doesn't necessarily want to change his rank as soon as he wants to stay away from the limelight. Clay responds that if he acts this way, he would be pushed more and more into the limelight and might end up creating some enemies who would do everything to see him destroyed. With that piece of advice, Clay gets up from the bath and walks out. After that relaxing bath, he returns back to the receptionist where he gets paid for his work while B snacks on some crackers. But the receptionist ends up asking once again, when exactly is Shiro planning to raise his rank? Shiro smiles and refuses, claiming that he still needs to perfect some things before he could think about raising his rank. He knows that the guild could probably get much higher paying jobs for him if he was a higher rank, which would be good for him and the guild as well. But right now, he is at a very good position where he gets paid for what he does, without sacrificing any of his personal freedom. Just when he was about to head down to his room, a messenger enters the guild, shouting that the city is going to get attacked by a horde of goblins. Immediately, the whole guild starts jumping into action, calling down warriors, getting their armor and shields ready, while the guildmaster asks one of the scouts about the A-ranked adventurers that are still in the city. The little mouse-like girl replies that only Clay is available right now, as the rest are already on some mission. He tells her to call him immediately and announces that every single adventurer rank D and above needs to participate in this fight. Shiro watches the mayhem unfold, but decides that it's not his problem to deal with since he is still rank F. But the guildmaster ends up calling him as well, claiming that they need his help right now. The guildmaster reveals that the goblins are probably going to attack from the western side and try to breach the main gate, so their best chance to defend the city would be to never let them cross the bridge to the main gate. Immediately, a roar of approval goes over the entire guild, as warriors excitedly take out their swords, making Shiro realize that all these guys are proper jocks who are getting excited, whereas he is more of the liberal type, who drinks matcha latte with oat milk. Suddenly, two of the oafish brutes standing beside him start making fun of him, telling him to stay out of their way as he might get crushed if he comes under their feet. Before he could make a mom joke, the guildmaster interrupts them, asking Shiro whether he is the gatherer that he has been hearing about for a while. He claims that some people in the guild have been glazing him and praising him unconditionally, and that's why the guildmaster named Grit decides to test him out to see whether he is the real deal or not. Grit also gets impressed by the fact that Shiro is one of the very few people who haven't been intimidated by him and bids him luck. He leaves the mouse Mew with him and takes the other two brutes. Mew turns towards Shiro and apologizes, since F-ranked adventurers are usually pulled out from such events, but Grit must have seen something in him, which is why he is letting Shiro fight. This seems to be the very first fight for Mew as well, since she is overexcited at the thought of finally meeting real enemies at the battlefield. That excitement soon turns to horror, however, as she can't even stop shaking from the fear and anxiety of the attack. She keeps getting spooked by birds around the area, and hugs Shiro as tightly as possible, telling him to save her. Shiro realizes that this is going to be troublesome if she keeps obstructing his movement in a real fight, so tells her to chill out for now, since they haven't even seen an enemy yet, let alone get involved in the battle. He gives her a little pep talk, telling her to simply focus on healing the wounded adventurers, and that in itself would be very helpful. Mew seems to feel a little better after this, and she finally stops crying before running back to the camp to help the wounded. Clay's laugh surprises Shiro a little, who wasn't expecting him to be at the same location. They start talking and Shiro immediately asks why he is not at the front lines, since he is one of the best fighters that they currently have, but Clay replies that his old scars have been really hurting recently. Without any help, Shiro immediately pinpoints the area of the scar, which surprises Clay a little, who asks Shiro whether he thinks that Clay got it while running away since the scars are on his back. But Shiro shakes his head in disagreement. He knows Clay enough to deduce that he would never run from an enemy, which means that he probably got that wound while trying to defend someone very close to him. He claims that the scar is a mark of bravery, that Clay put his life on the line and saved someone, and even after that he is back again on the battlefield, ready to save anyone who needs his help. Before they could continue their talk though, Clay notices a cloud of dust approaching them at a distance, which suddenly twists his face in horror as he realizes that the Guildmaster's formation must have failed and the goblins have breached the area. He immediately picks up a spear and gets ready to fight. Shiro tells him to stay back since his scars are giving him trouble, but Clay tells him that he has some new friends to save today and runs off towards the oncoming enemies. Shiro realizes that he must join the battle now as well. So with a sigh, he takes out his magic staff and creates a barrier around the tent area where the wounded are being healed. He immediately uses his super speed to run towards the battle, where he finds only a few tattered group of adventurers getting overwhelmed by the goblins attacking them. The two brutes who tried bullying Shiro are also there, holding their ground against the enemies, but several goblins are able to pass past them towards the city. Shiro had no intentions of letting them go though, and he uses his magic to harden his body before punching the crap out of the goblin. He realizes that these goblins are much stronger than the enemies he faced before, so he asks Bee's help, who immediately gets down from his shoulder and pickaches the shit out of every single goblin in the area, knocking them down immediately. The other adventurers thank Shiro for his help, claiming that things were going according to the plan, but a high-ranking goblin sergeant appeared out of nowhere, collapsing the front line completely. It was only because of Clay that they managed to fall back and hold their ground till now. Shiro realizes that Clay might be in trouble, so he immediately rushes inside the forest, where he finally finds Clay fighting against a group of goblins, slashing them down one by one. But to his horror, his scars start aching, forcing his knees to buckle in pain. But that was a mistake, as immediately some goblins try to take him down. Thankfully, Shiro intervenes just in time, shocking the crap out of the goblins, saving Clay's life. Before they could back off, however, the hobgoblin appears and jumps to attack them. They both dodge the attack, but start getting surrounded by goblins once again. Clay tells Shiro to run away while he holds them back, but Shiro decides to try something new. He shocks a bunch of goblins, causing some confusion, during which Shiro takes out the mana water from the cave and sprays it all over Clay before chanting a healing spell, which not only heals his back completely, but transforms him into Kaiju number 8. After that, Clay manages to absolutely destroy every single goblin all on his own, and by the time the rain stops, Clay is the only one standing. The Guildmaster also arrives at the scene, thanking Shiro for his continued support and promises to reward him for his help. Later that evening, Clay enters Shiro's room and has now returned back to his normal self. He asks Shiro what exactly he threw at him, and Shiro explains that the water was mana-rich lake water from the lair of an ancient dragon. Clay replies that his ancestors used to be dragons, but now he is nothing more than a lizard. But thanks to Shiro, he has managed to transform into a half-dragon form, but claims that he is too scared to use it. He is afraid of losing control of himself and destroying everything around him. But Shiro tells him not to worry too much. Suddenly, Clay gets serious and asks Shiro who he is exactly. Shiro finally decides to tell him the truth, replying that he has been reincarnated to this world after he died in another world. Clay finds it hard to believe, but after what he has already seen, he can't really believe his experiences anymore. They decide to call it a night and return back to their beds. Shiro wakes up early next morning and goes out into the city to explore some more. When he finds a shop selling all kinds of goods, he stands there watching from the window when the shopkeeper arrives to open the store, asking whether he is interested in any weapons or ancient artifacts. Shiro immediately asks the furry if she sells scissors for gathering materials at her shop, and she replies that she doesn't have anything like that. She immediately figures out that Shiro is the gatherer everyone is talking about and says she can get him some good quality scissors. The furry introduces herself Ribble and says that their chief blacksmith is a true master and he can make any type of tools. However, if Shiro wants him to create scissors for him, he will need to find some things that he is looking for. Shiro is a bit confused by this, so Ribble leads him inside the store. He stops in his tracks as he sees 3 blacksmiths hard at work, and Ribble tells him that she fell in love with the way the blacksmiths pounded the red-hot iron. After that, she leads him to the boss of the shop, who is a grumpy old dwarf. Ribble introduces Shiro to him and suggests that he could bring some Ildra ore for them. which they desperately need to win the upcoming sword-making competition. The judgmental dwarf replies that he is not sending a mere gatherer into the dangerous mines, but Ribble says that they need to give him a chance. The dwarf and the furry begin arguing, and in the end Ribble dominates the old guy by pulling his beard and telling him they can't win the competition with a half-baked sword. The dwarf yells at her, saying that the mine is especially dangerous right now because there is news that demons are present there. He declares that the safety of his customers is his top priority, and that is why he can't send Shiro to the Ruhai mines. Ribble gets emotional on hearing how much the old-timer cares about their customers and apologizes to Shiro for wasting his time. However, Shiro puts a plate of cookies on the table, asking the chief blacksmith if he will make a pair of scissors for him if he can bring him some Ildra ore from the Ruhai mines. The dwarf panics on hearing this because he doesn't want to be blamed for anyone's death, but Shiro assures him that he is perfectly capable of protecting himself. He pulls out a crab claw from his pocket, and on realizing that it belongs to a B-rank monster, he agrees to let Shiro go to the mine. The next day, Shiro rides a carriage along with other adventurers as he heads to the Ruhai mines, and Bee keeps dancing because she is excited to go on a new journey. Meanwhile, the other adventurers talk about how strange things have been happening around the area recently, like plants withering out of nowhere and disturbing sounds coming out of forests. Shiro gets a little conscious on hearing this and wonders if these things are happening because of him, but he shakes those thoughts from his head. Once he gets off the carriage, he passes by a horse trader and begins thinking that he wants to own a horse someday. Suddenly, he hears a familiar voice from the building, yelling at the trader for scamming her. It turns out to be the stupid elf he saved in the forest earlier, and she is telling the trader that she ordered a strong white horse that could run so fast it could basically fly. However, the trader gives her a giant white bird instead, and the elf is not having it. The horse merchant tells her that they are very inclusive around these parts, and any creature that can carry cargo is called a horse, no matter what species it is. The elf girl immediately realizes that it was her mistake for thinking that a horse shop would sell horses. She apologizes for not wording her order more clearly because she actually wanted a Pegasus, and the merchant tells her that she can only find them in the Dwarven Kingdom. Shiro just hears the entire exchange from a distance because he doesn't want to get involved with the crazy woman again, even though they are both heading in the same distance. He decides to gather some materials along the way and immediately enters the forest to pick some shrooms and flowers. As he is picking the flowers, he hears a loud roar, but this time, he knows that it is not a monster. He follows the sound to find the elf woman almost passed out due to hunger yet again. He gives her some water and food, thinking that she must have a real smooth brain to not have learned anything from the previous incident. As soon as the elf finishes eating, she is full of energy and gets up to thank Shiro. However, he can't bear the terrible smell she gives off and instinctively uses the spell to clean her. She is pleasantly surprised by this and asks what did he do to her. Shiro replies he used a spell to clean her because she was ruining the image he has of elves as a race. The elf woman then introduces herself as Vel and thanks Shiro for saving her twice. He tells her it was no biggie and begins walking away, but Vel stops him, saying that elves always repay favors and she wants to help him somehow. Shiro clearly tells her that he doesn't need anything in return, so Vel insists that she will help him with his work in that case. Bee flies over to her and Vel remarks that even the dragon approves of her. Shiro decides there is no harm in letting her tag along till the next town, and he gets busy with collecting the mushrooms again. Vel soon comes to him saying that she found a rare monster poop that sells for a lot, but it is just a lot, and the next time, she brings the dung of a normal animal. Despite being disheartened twice, Vel believes the third time will be a charm and brings a poisonous mushroom with her instead. Later that evening, she offers to collect firewood to cook food, but Shiro tells her there is no need for that because he can use magic stones. However, Vel tells him that the signs of a campfire are helpful to other travelers who follow this route because it lets them know this is a safe space to camp. Shiro sees the logic in her argument and lets her collect wood, but Vel brings a big and thick log instead because that is how she likes them. Shiro tells her that they can't burn such a big log so easily, but Vel has him covered. She eats the log high in the air and then slashes it into smaller pieces using her dagger. Shiro is surprised on seeing this, but when he finds that Vel's daggers are a rank weapons, things suddenly start making sense. After that, he cooks a delicious stew for everyone and Vel is blown away by the taste. She then asks Shiro if he is also heading to the Kingdom of Dwarves, and he agrees, revealing that he is trying to mine Ildra ore from the Ruhai mines. He asks Vel why is she going to the Dwarf Kingdom, and she gets sad as she replies that she is looking for the white Pegasus of heaven that her sister wants to find. She doesn't let her sadness dampen the mood around the campfire and says that she is even more indebted to Shiro now. He gets an idea and asks her if she can be his bodyguard during the rest of his journey, Vel gets really excited at the idea to protect Shiro from all kind of evil enemies, but what he really wants is to learn helpful things like the firewood tip she gave him earlier. Vel is confused that he wants so little in exchange for feeding her, but she agrees to his offer. She acts like a dignified and graceful elf as she shakes hands with Shiro, who suddenly gets excited on seeing her like this. However, all that excitement of being with an elf goes down the drain when Vel starts snoring loudly and Shiro can't sleep. The next day, he continues the journey to the Dwarven Kingdom with zero sleep. As soon as they reach the border city, Shiro heads to an inn to try Dwarven cuisine, and Vel remarks that it is as delicious as her lizardman friend told her. Shiro tells her that he also has a lizardman friend, and Vel begins boasting about her friend, who is the Holy Dragon Knight of the Stolfa's Empire. That phrase sounds similar to Shiro, and just then, Clay speaks out from the table behind him, asking Vel if she is talking about him. Shiro and Vel are surprised to see him there, and Clay remarks that it must be a work of fate that his two friends are traveling together. He then turns to Shiro, asking how could he be so heartless to leave the town without telling him, and Shiro nervously replies that he informed the guild. Clay is not satisfied with that answer and asks where is he going. Once he learns that Shiro is going to the Raihe mines, he starts lecturing him again, saying that adventurers at his rank can't even accept quests to go to such dangerous mines. He says that the place is extremely dangerous, and if Shiro is not getting a serious reward out of it, he should not go to the mines. Shiro proudly says that he is getting a good reward as a master blacksmith is going to make him the ultimate scissors for collecting ingredients. Clay is dumbfounded because this sounds like a stupid reward, but Shiro believes that if he is on good terms with the blacksmith, he will make him high-quality cooking utensils in the future. Clay calls him an idiot sandwich for accepting this offer, even as Shiro claims that scissors are the most important tool for a gatherer. Clay suddenly declares that he is going to come along on this quest because he is going to the dwarf country to repair his spear anyway. Shiro is not really comfortable with the idea, but then Vel eagerly asks Clay if he is also going to be Shiro's bodyguard too. She begins boasting about how she is going to protect Shiro till he reaches his destination. Clay likes the idea, and he decides to become a bodyguard as well. Shiro, however, is not happy about this situation. Even though he knows both Vel and Clay are quite strong, their personalities make him worried about his peace of mind. Soon after that, they reach the capital city of the dwarves, but there is a huge line outside the city gates. Luckily, Clay knows the guards, and they let him and his friends use the special entrance reserved only for Vit. As they walk down a long flight of stairs, the guard gives them a lecture about the city's history. Once they reach the city, Shiro and Vel are amazed to see that the dwarves dug out a mountain to create this underground city. Meanwhile, the guard tells Clay that the king wanted to see him. Shiro is surprised to hear that Clay knows the king as well, and the lizardman replies that he is actually on good terms with the king even though he doesn't deserve it. The guard tells him to stop acting humble because he is the hero who saved their country. Clay says it was all a misunderstanding and explains the real story to Shiro. He says that back in the day, the dwarves were great at making weapons but terrible at using them. So a powerful demon oppressed them and collected tribute from them. One day, he was just passing by the area, and as soon as the dragon saw him, he flew away for some unknown reason. The dwarves thought that he forced the demon to run, and they began calling him a hero. Well, the guard says that the dwarves still think he is a hero, and they have even erected a statue of him recently, but Clay facepalms because they have made him look like Godzilla. Once they reach the palace, Clay immediately confronts the king about the weird statue, but the king says everyone in the country finds it cool. After that, the old king turns his attention towards Shiro and asks the reason for his visit. Shiro hands him a letter of introduction from the master blacksmith and requests permission to enter the Raihe mines. The king asks Shiro if he knows that the mines have become a den of demons after a recent earthquake, and he affirms. Clay tells the king that he is going to escort Shiro as his bodyguard, and he can also guarantee that Vel is strong enough to keep up with him. On hearing this, the king permits Shiro and his group to enter the Raihe mines and find the cause of the demon uprising there. Clay accepts the mission, and Shiro complains that he doesn't want to go on an investigation mission. However, he doesn't have much say in this matter because Clay is the hero of the dwarves, and he has already said yes. Soon, the three of them are led into the mines by a dwarf named Zanbo, and Shiro uses his spells to light up the dark cave. He then uses another spell to memorize the map Zanbo gave them so that he doesn't get lost, and both his bodyguards say he is doing impossible things again. Shiro ignores them and starts searching for the Ildra ore with his skills. but he can only find a small amount of low-quality ores. Zanbo is impressed that he could find the ores, and as Shiro suggests going deeper into the cave, B alerts him about incoming danger. Everyone gets into position and Shiro uses his search skill to verify B's alert. Just a second later, 2 spider monsters arrive there and Clay immediately takes down one of them with his spear. Shiro paralyzes the other one, giving Vel the chance to finish it off. They continue their journey after that and Shiro spots a huge amount of high-quality Ildra ore behind a dead end. He obtains permission from Zanbo and then blows a hole in the wall, leading them to an empty space filled with purple crystals. While Shiro thinks they are the Ildra ore he is after, Zanbo tells him they are Ildrite crystals, which are even rarer and more precious. Shiro fails to understand the importance of his discovery when B frantically warns him about incoming danger. Everyone goes out, and from the menacing footsteps, Zanbo can tell that a demon is approaching them. Shiro suddenly steps ahead, telling Clay and Vel to let him handle this enemy, because it is not an ordinary demon. It is a giant crab demon, and Shiro wants to hunt it down himself, because he wants to eat its delicious meat. B starts cuddling with him in celebration and Shiro tells her that he is also extremely happy right now. He is drooling because the crab in front of them looks really delicious, and he is so excited that he could eat its flesh raw. As the two of them dance like idiots, Clay and Vel are dumbfounded. Vel tells Shiro to stop getting distracted in front of the monster, and thanks to her intervention, he is able to notice the crab attacking him just in time to dodge its heavy claw. Clay and Vel tell Shiro that the crab in front of them is a rank monster, and they need to combine their strengths to take it down. However, Shiro decides to aura farm instead of letting them help because he doesn't want anyone else to call dibs on his perfect main course meat. He tells B to cover for him, but forbids him to use fire or lightning attacks. He then pulls out his staff from his bag and laughs like a maniac before casting a whole bunch of buffs on him. He casts spells to reduce his weight and increase his speed while also hardening his hands and feet. He then charges towards the crab with both Vel and Clay worried about him. B suddenly uses a sonic attack to immobilize the crab and confuse its senses. Shiro uses this chance and leaps at the crab, hitting it with his full strength. However, to his shock, his full power attack doesn't do any damage to the hard shell of the crab monster, who sends him flying with a simple strike. Shiro manages to land on his feet and luckily, he has not taken any damage yet. However, before he can try to attack again, the crab pushes him away. B comes in to his rescue and uses an ice attack on the crab, freezing its leg on the ground to stop it from attacking. Shiro thanks B for his help and then scans the crab to find any weakness. He finds 3 joints where the crab is the weakest, and he immediately summons icicles to target them. B spins those icicles rapidly by coating them with wind magic, and Shiro sends them to attack the crab, completely freezing it. Everyone else is dumbfounded on seeing this, and as Shiro and B pray for the crab's soul, Vel and Zanbo check out the frozen crab. Clay, on the other hand, is furious that he didn't get a chance to fight and Shiro nervously apologizes to him. He says that if they fought the monster normally, it would get covered in mud and blood, and that might ruin the edible parts. Clay is stunned on realizing that Shiro plans to eat a monster. But then he gets mad at another thing. He reminds Shiro that he is supposed to be his bodyguard, and if he goes ahead and fights the monsters himself, there is no point in him being here. Shiro feels a bit guilty about that, but replies that he is more used to fighting these types of monsters. Clay agrees with him, but he still reminds him that in situations like these, they need to work as a team to defeat their enemies. He asks Shiro to rely a bit more on him and Vel, and Shiro and B nervously apologize for not thinking about that on their own. Clay pats them to say that it is alright, and then decides they should haul the crab out of the cave first. Once they are done with that, Shiro and others mine the Ildrite crystals in the area, but he tells the dwarf guide that he is still getting readings from the deeper parts of the cave. He suggests that they can explore it to find an even larger amount of Ildrite, and the dwarf Zanbo starts crying because Shiro found a new mineral vein for them. Seeing him like that, Shiro thinks that maybe all the bizarre changes that are happening all over the continent were because he met B's dad. He feels that his actions there changed the course of history, and now he finally realizes what the K-pop god wanted when he sent him to this world. As his friends start heading back, Shiro realizes that his selfish actions have already started changing the world, and he hopes that the change is a positive one. Soon, everyone returns to the castle and Shiro tells the king that they finished their investigation safely and even took down the biggest threat there. The king is delighted to hear that, but he still wants an official confirmation from Zanbo, who excitedly tells the king about the moment Shiro took down the crab monster. He then requests Shiro to show the monster to the king, and he decides to fulfill his request. He opens his magic bag, and the frozen crab pops out of it. The entire throne room rattles from the weight of the monster, and the king can't believe his eyes. He goes closer to fully absorb the size of the monster and then declares that Shiro's brave act is worthy of a reward. Shiro immediately asks for the monster as his reward, and the king is shocked because he doesn't see any value in that. Soon after that, Shiro and his friends go out to the city and Vel is happy because they got a lot of cash from the king. However, Shiro could care less about that because he is dreaming about all the ways in which he can cook the crab. Clay is a bit creeped out at the fact that both Shiro and B become Delulu at random moments. But Shiro tells him that the crab is going to be more valuable than he thinks. The next day, Vel receives a Pegasus as a gift from the king because he came to know that she was looking for one. Vel is delighted to see the winged horse, and in the meantime, Zanbo gives Clay his repaired spear. Vel rides on the Pegasus, telling Shiro that it is meant for her sister, so she will immediately head home with it. She tells him that she owes him a huge deal, and even if she spends her life trying to repay it, it might not be enough. Shiro replies that it is already sorted because he got a crab. Just then, their carriage arrives and Shiro wishes goodbye to Vel. She tells him that they will certainly meet again and files off with that. A few days after that, Shiro and Clay reach their city and Bunny Girl Senpai welcomes them back. She is surprised to see them together and asks if they formed a team. Shiro says that Clay just tagged along, but the lizardman interrupts him and declares that they have indeed formed a team. Aria is really excited on hearing this, and she immediately runs off to inform the guild master. While Shiro gives Clay a side-eye, Clay tells him that he has decided to tag along with him for longer, because he knows that Shiro is not just an ordinary human, and they need someone sensible to keep an eye on him. While Shiro is not really sure about teaming up with Clay, B already likes the idea and starts circling around him. After thinking about it for a while, Shiro also concludes that traveling with him won't be a bad idea, and they sit down to discuss their team's name. On Clay's suggestion, they decide to call themselves the Azure Black Brigade and officially register as a team. After that, Shiro goes to the blacksmith's workshop with the Ildrite crystals. As Ribble and her master examine the crystal, Shiro asks if it is good enough to make the sword they want. They suddenly start trembling like an old Nokia, and Shiro panics, wondering if high-purity Ildrite is more difficult to work with. However, the two blacksmiths suddenly start yelling and crying because they have never seen such high-purity crystals before. The master blacksmith says that he has never seen this much at once in his 120 years as a blacksmith, and even B starts crying because he wants to be involved. Shiro is glad that they liked the crystals he brought for them. But then Ribble says that they can't pay him enough for all the Ildrite. He tells them that his request is still the same, and he just wants a custom-made pair of scissors. However, he is ready to delay that for a while because he first wants Ribble and her master to create a sword that will win the sword forging tournament. Half a month later, as Shiro is enjoying lunch and drinks at an inn, the furry comes there with a letter from a noble who wants to see him immediately. Shiro doesn't want to get involved with a noble and pretends that he is having a heart attack in his kidneys, but Clay tells him to stop acting stupid. Even the furry assures him that Lord Belmonant is not an unpleasant guy, and Shiro decides to open his letter. He finds it addressed to both him and Clay because they are a team and Lord Belmonant talks about bestowing honors on them. Shiro finds this suspicious and wonders what does he want in return, but Clay knows that the noble just wants to see the baby dragon. Shiro gets worried at this and hugs B, asking if the Belmonant wants to steal him. However, both Clay and the furry believe that Belmonant won't do that, and on top of that, he doesn't have the authority for that either. Soon after that, Shiro and Clay are taken to the Lord's mansion, is a fancy carriage, and everyone in the city keeps staring at them. Shiro wonders why are they so interested, and Clay replies that it is every adventurer's dream to be invited to a noble's mansion, because if a noble decides to back an adventurer, they are set for life. They soon reach the Lord's mansion and Shiro is flabbergasted on seeing the level of wealth. The carriage stops in front of the Lord's castle and a butler comes there to escort them in. A team of maids welcome them in and Shiro gets happy because he always wanted to be greeted by maids. Just then, an arrogant lowly brat comes running there and she immediately goes towards Shiro and B. She asks if this is the baby dragon and then says that she was expecting it to look a bit more intelligent. She suddenly points at B and says that the baby dragon belongs to her now. Shiro and B freak out on hearing this and B hides behind him. Shiro tells the spoiled lowly that she is being unreasonable and she tells him that dragons are noble creatures and only someone as noble as her can raise one. Shiro quickly realizes that the girl is immune to logic, so he scans her stats to find that her name is Tirish and she is the 14-year-old daughter of Lord Belmonant. He wonders how to deal with this unreasonable girl and then decides to go soft on her. He kneels before Tirish and asks her why does she think she is entitled to the dragon. The girl nervously says that her butler told her that there was an adventurer with a dragon, so naturally, she wanted that. She says that the butler also told her that when dealing with stupid adventurers, she should act dignified and hold her ground. Shiro is pissed off at the butler now, but then he tells Tirish that B is his family and she shouldn't try to take him away. The girl is shocked to hear that, and as B responds to her, she is even more taken aback because she never thought the dragon baby was smart enough to understand human speech. She suddenly starts tearing up and apologizes to Shiro for speaking so rudely without realizing their bond. B flies over to pacify her and Tirish gets so happy that she hugs him. B immediately rushes back to Shiro, who asks the girl why did she want a dragon so badly. Tirish replies that she wanted to show it to her mom. Just then, her father arrives there and Shiro is dumbfounded on seeing how young and handsome he is, and he can't believe he is the noble who called him. The man introduces himself as Lord Belmonent and greets Shiro, saying that he has heard a lot about him. They sit down for tea next and Belmonent apologizes for his daughter's behavior first. Clay immediately gets to business and asks why he summoned them here, and Belmonent replies it is about his wife. Clay is shocked to hear this and explains to Shiro that Belmonent's wife has been bedridden for a long time now. The noble affirms, saying that he recently heard a rumor about Shiro making a weak and sick man healthy in just one day, and he wanted to seek his help in treating his wife. Shiro thinks about it and feels that he needs to be really careful in treating the woman because his magic was powerful enough to make Clay evolve. Belmonent then tells him that Tirish wants a dragon for her mother because she thought that if a cute creature stayed next to her, her health would improve. Clay starts trembling as he tries to hold back his tears on hearing this, and B can't even do that. Seeing them so emotional, guilt trips Shiro into agreeing, but he still doesn't want to take any risks. However, after thinking for a while, he decides to save the woman's life and accepts the request. Belmonent leads everyone to his wife's room and Shiro finds that it is incredibly dusty. Belmonent's wife looks really pale and her bones are protruding through her skin. Shiro is shocked to see her and he asks the noble if he can brighten up the room before starting the treatment. He learns that the woman is allergic to sunlight, so he decides to scan her in the low light. He finds that her body has enough diseases to keep a full hospital busy treating her. He tells Belmonent that he can treat most of her symptoms, but there is a condition called Ivor poisoning that he has no idea about. He stays silent as he thinks about his options and then asks the noble that if he trusts an unknown adventurer with his wife's life. The woman has already given up hope to be cured and she just wishes to hold her daughter in her arms one last time. So Belmonent decides to take the leap of faith and asks Shiro to save his wife. As Belmonent pleads to save his wife Mule with tears flowing down his face, Shiro accepts his request. Clay asks Shiro if he is going to use the same method to heal the frail lady, but he refuses. The method he used earlier consumes a lot of mana to heal the body. But Mule doesn't have that right now, and she will probably die if he uses that method on her. He decides to treat her symptoms first, starting with her weak eyes that hurt even if a bit of sunlight enters the room. He uses the heal spell on her eyes, making sure that he doesn't use a lot of mana at once, because that will also hurt her. After a while of healing the eyes, Shiro asks Mule to open them. She gently opens her eyes, and to her utter delight, her vision is much better now. She is happy about this result already, but Shiro has more to offer. He takes out his staff from his bag and then uses a spell to create the entire room in one go. The powerful spell blows out all the dirt from the room and opens the windows at the same time. As the sunlight pours into the room, Belmonent asks his wife if she is fine, and she starts crying as she says that the sunlight doesn't hurt her eyes anymore. While the two of them celebrate this joyous occasion with tears in their eyes, Shiro notices a butler and some maids staring at them from behind. He feels something is really odd about the butler and tells Belmonent that they should go somewhere else to talk. Once they reach Belmonent's study, Shiro reveals that Mule is suffering from something called Ivor poisoning. Belmonent immediately realizes that someone is poisoning her on purpose. But there is something that worries him even more than that. Shiro tells him that because he doesn't know the details about Ivor poison, he can't fully cure Mule. He asks Belmonent if he can get the antidote for it from somewhere, and the noble gets depressed as he replies that there is no antidote. Ivor poison is an ancient poison that was considered lost to time, and the knowledge about the antidote is lost too. Shiro replies that if someone else can make the poison now, the knowledge still exists, and they should try to recreate the poison to find an antidote. Clay replies that they don't even know what ingredients are used to make the poison, but just then, Belmonent comes up with an idea. He reveals that his ancestors gathered important historical records as a hobby, and they might contain some information they need. However, most of those documents are in an ancient language that no one can understand now. Luckily, that is not a problem for Shiro, whose language translation skill lets him translate the ancient text into Japanese. He still doesn't know which books are helpful, so he narrows his search to keywords about poison and finds one book that has information about the Iver plant. However, Shiro finds it odd because it is a diary entry written by someone called Pola Pola, who claims to be the cutest adventurer ever. Shiro decides to completely get into character and acts like a cringe Delulu teenager while reading the diary. According to it, Pola found a big rock shaped like a winged horse near a huge lake, and next to the rock, there were sparkling golden flowers. Clay immediately shuts Shiro's mouth before he can spread more cringe brain rot, and then tells Belmonent that he knows the location mentioned in the diary. He brings out a map and points to a lake outside Belmonent's territory that has a Pegasus statue. He says they might find the Iver flower there, but unfortunately, the place is 5 days away even by a carriage. Shiro says that they will leave immediately, and Belmonent starts making arrangements for that, while the nerdy butler watches over them and sends out a messenger pigeon. In the meantime, Shiro puts a barrier magic stone outside Mule's room, telling Belmonent that this is to protect his wife in case someone tries to harm her. Just then, Tirish comes running and apologizes to Shiro for being rude to him earlier. He tells her that her words were really harsh, but he will forgive her because she realized her mistake on her own. He tells her to develop the important skill of admitting her mistakes because that will help her grow as a person, and also asks her to take her time and think things through instead of rushing to a conclusion. Tirish promises she will do that, and then Shiro says that once he is gone, someone might try to turn her against him by calling him a villain or a scammer. He wants her to report the matter to her dad instead of believing what she is told, because that will help avoid any unfortunate incidents. With that, Shiro and Clay get on their unicorns and rush to their destination. Shiro casts spells to reduce weight and increase weight on all of them, and the horses start galloping much faster than he thought. They reach the location quickly, but it is an utter disappointment to Shiro. Clay informs him that there was a prosperous village here the last time he came around, but things seem to have gotten worse suddenly. Shiro hopes that the lake has not dried up because of the drought, but Clay assures him that the lake is too big to evaporate entirely. However, the lake is in an even more critical condition than the surrounding areas. The water seems polluted, and there are dead trees inside the lake. Shiro examines the lake and finds that it has been poisoned using a toxin found in the horns of Garanode buffalo monster. Shiro tells Clay that it looks like someone deliberately poisoned the lake, but before he can elaborate, the villagers arrive there ready to fight off the intruders. Shiro takes one look at the weak and terrified villagers and approaches them to talk things out peacefully. He says they are adventurers on a quest to gather rare material, and the villagers can't believe him so easily. However, when Clay shows his rank armband, the villagers immediately drop their weapons. Shiro asks them if they can tell him more about what happened here. But just then, one guy collapses because of weakness. Shiro finds that his body is incredibly light and immediately guesses that the villagers don't have enough to eat. The villagers first take him to the village, which is in shambles because of the drought. They tell Shiro that 10 months ago, the lake suddenly became poisoned and the fish died. The groundwater also became too polluted to use, and everyone was in a desperate situation. Right at that time, a merchant named Ngash arrived at the village and offered to save it in exchange for the golden flower that grows near the lake. The location of the flower was a secret that their village had guarded for a long time, because it was considered a divine flower. However, they were desperate and agreed to give Ngash one flower each month in exchange for 60 barrels of water. That is enough for them to drink, but not enough for the crops, and that is why the villagers have been starving for a long time. Shiro understands the situation now and tells the villagers that Ngash sounds like a villain. They refuse to believe him because Ngash is the one helping them out. But Shiro tells them to use their brain for once and think about how sus the timing of his arrival was. He reveals that the lake was poisoned by someone on purpose, and the culprit can't be anyone else than Ngash, who is demanding a poisonous flower each month in exchange for water. The villagers feel their entire belief system shattering on hearing this, but Shiro is furious. He swears to crush Ngash and his evil schemes himself. But before that, he decides to help out the starving villagers. He asks B to use his spirit magic, and the baby dragon flies above the clouds, using his magic to make it rain. After a bit of rain has given the villagers some water and a lot of hope, Shiro tells B to stop. He then gives everyone an instant shower because they haven't washed in months now. The villagers are stunned at this, but Shiro doesn't stop there and uses his magic to repair their houses. Next, he pulls out his giant wok and cooks a delicious stew for the entire village. Once everyone is fulfilled, the village chief thanks Shiro, asking how can they ever repay him. Shiro replies that they can just let him harvest the Iver flowers because he has to prepare an antidote urgently. The village chief is ready for that, but as he begins thinking about something, the kids come there and tell Shiro to play with him. The chief tells him to go away because they are busy right now. But Shiro tells him that it is fine because he likes seeing kids act healthy and playful. He follows the kids to their secret base, which is basically a warehouse to collect the litas fruits that grow nearby. The leader of the kids explains that only the nectar from the flowers tastes sweet, and the fruits are very salty, so they throw them out. Shiro tries to see if his skills can find anything about the fruit, but only a blank screen turns up. However, he sees a familiar-looking brown liquid oozing out of the fruits, and as he tastes it, he remembers the taste of soy sauce that he had been missing all this time. At the same time in Belmonent's mansion, Tirish rushes to her mother's room on hearing the sound of an alarm. Before leaving the mansion, Shiro had installed a special magic alarm in the room that would be triggered if anyone with ill intentions tried to come inside. Tirish wonders who the hell could it be, but as she reaches the room, she finds the shady butler Bernard there. She is scared of him and tells him to stay away from her, and Bernard asks what is wrong. She asks him if he is trying to kill her mother, and Bernard calmly asks her why would she even think that. Tirish reveals that Shiro set up an alarm to detect hostile intentions, and the butler starts mocking him. He says that adventurers are mannerless, greedy jerks, and Tirish shouldn't take them seriously. He says that Shiro is just after money, and he is setting up fancy but useless alarms to extort money from her father. Tirish refuses to believe a single bad thing about Shiro, but Bernard asks her if she is going to trust a random adventurer, or a butler who has served her family loyally for years. The girl starts panicking at this, but luckily, Belmonent arrives there just in time. Tirish rushes to him and says that she has something important to report. Belmonent hears both Tirish and Bernard's side of the story in his office, and he agrees with the butler that Shiro might be trying to scam them. However, it is a fact that Shiro made Mule better, and his alarm is indicating that Bernard is a danger to her. That is why he decides to put things to the test. The head butler brings a jug of water into the office just then, and Bernard panics on seeing it. Belmonent pours him a glass, saying that he doesn't have any way to figure out who is the actual enemy, so he will start by making Bernard prove his innocence. He tells Bernard to drink the special water that he always brings, claiming that it will speed up Mule's recovery. The butler starts getting flustered at this, and then Belmonent splashes the water on his face. Bernard starts screaming like a bitch, saying that the water is poisoned, but turns out Belmonent just played a prank on him. He drinks the water because it is just normal tap water, and the poison that Bernard was giving to Mule has already been sealed away. Belmonent then orders his guards to take the criminal away, and after that, the head butler gives him a letter that he found in Bernard's room just now. Belmonent is shocked because the letter is written in a code language, and he realizes that whoever is behind it is quite smart. At the same time, the merchant in Gash goes to the village and begins knocking on the chief's door. As one of the villagers comes to see what is going on, he is shocked to see the merchant, who claims he is here to get the flower earlier this time. The villager first tells him that the chief is taking some adventurers out on a tour, and then recalls that the flower is poisonous. He tells Ngash that they can't let him have it anymore, and turns out the merchant was prepared for this. He immediately calls his goons, telling them to end things quickly. Meanwhile, the village chief leads Shiro and Clay through a secret cave, bringing them to the location where the golden Iver flowers grow right next to the statue of a Pegasus. Shiro is amazed by the beautiful scenery in front of him, and once he is done looking at the Pegasus statue, he decides to analyze the Iver flowers. He learns that the Iver flowers bloom only on the shores of this particular lake because they were created from the tears of the divine beast Hoffel. Shiro asks the village chief about the divine beast and learns that Hoffel is the winged horse who protected the village from the lake demons. Their ancestors started worshipping it as their guardian deity ever since that day, and everyone in the village knows the story about the Iver flower being created from Hoffel's tears. Shiro asks the old man if it is really fine for him to take something with so much value, and he replies that as the savior of their village, Shiro can take as many flowers as he wants. Shiro is glad to hear this, and he uproots just one flower, thinking that it will be enough to create an antidote. He starts thinking about experimenting with the soy sauce fruit already, but his thoughts are disrupted when he hears someone screaming nearby. In a few seconds, a villager arrives there, out of breath and panicking, because the village has been set on fire by the merchant Ngash. Shiro and Clay carry the chief and the other villager on their backs as they race to the village. They are greeted by a horrifying scene as all the houses in the village are burning. Shiro wastes no time and immediately starts putting out the fire with Bee's help. While Clay evacuates the villagers, they manage to get the situation under control quickly. But the houses are reduced to rubble by the time the fire goes out. The village guard informs Shiro that no one was seriously injured, and that is the best news they could hope for. Shiro asks how did the fire start, and the guard tells him that Ingash came to the village and demanded the Iver flowers. However, since he knew that the flowers are poisonous, he refused to give them to him, and the merchant told his lackeys to set the village on fire. Shiro is furious at the evil merchant when suddenly, the chief starts panicking because he can't find the boy named Gonza. Shiro remembers Gonza as the kid who opened up to him quickly, and he begins suspecting that Ingash took him hostage. An old granny immediately confirms that, revealing that Ingash took Gonza towards the lake when everyone was panicking because of the fire. Shiro's rage boils over on hearing this, and he immediately uses his search skill at maximum range. He locates human signals at an abandoned fortress nearby and tells Clay that Ingash has at least 100 goons working for him. Clay says that is not a problem as he gets on his unicorn. But the village chief tries to stop them both because it is too dangerous to face Ingash. Shiro assures him that they are strong enough to handle the merchant and his henchmen, and he promises that he will bring back Gonza safely. Soon, they reach the fortress and B scouts the area to find that all the bandits are partying. While Shiro tries to come up with a plan, Clay turns into Kaiju number 8 because he can't forgive bastards who would throw a party after kidnapping someone. Shiro understands that he has good reason to be angry, but he tells him to calm down because if they attack without a plan, Gonza might be in danger. Shiro suddenly comes up with a plan and casts an invisibility spell on himself and Clay. Thanks to that, they easily sneak past the two drunk guards and then knock out another drunkard who had come to refill his booze. Clay senses that all the bandits have gathered above them and Shiro decides to stay invisible for as long as possible while dealing with them. Clay agrees and then points out that Shiro has been gathering everything he finds in the fortress, which he claims is to find proof for the bandits' crimes. They start searching for Gonza, but even when they have searched all the rooms, they don't find any clue. Clay decides that it is time for them to talk to the main culprit and get the boy's location from him, and Shiro agrees. They reach the room where Ingash and his men are partying, and one of them starts laughing while talking about how pitiful the villagers looked when their houses were burned. Another bandit says that it was unfortunate that they couldn't get the location of the flowers, but a third and even more arrogant bandit replies that they kidnapped Gonza for that purpose only. He laughs, saying that now that they are at the last stage of their plan, they can easily raise the price of the Iver poison and score a huge profit. Another bandit asks him how the price of the poison will be increased, and the arrogant one replies that once news spreads that even someone as rich and influential as Belmonent could not save his wife after she was infected with Iver poison, people will realize how powerful it is. Many people will try to get Iver poison to kill their enemies, and then they can increase the price however much they want. Just as the bandit finishes saying this, a bottle hits the back of his neck and knocks him out. It was Ingash who threw the bottle to remind everyone that this plan is top secret and they should not talk out loud about it. Shiro and Clay hear all this from outside the room, and Clay says that he can no longer control his rage. Shiro gives him the green signal to cause a rampage, but tells him not to kill anyone. Clay immediately cancels the invisibility and destroys the door, causing the bandits to panic. Clay starts wreaking havoc inside the room, knocking down bandits with each punch, and Ingash panics on seeing this. He tells one of the bandits to bring out their secret weapon, even though it is not fully under their control right now. As Ingash wonders how did it all turn like this, Shiro appears next to him and suggests that they should move the kid away from danger first. Ingash thinks that it is one of his lackeys, so he reveals Gonza's location, but when he turns around, he is shocked to see no one around. In the meantime, Shiro rushes to the outhouse that is being guarded by just one bandit who is pissed that everyone else is partying, but he is still working. B volunteers to take him out, and Shiro gives him the permission. The baby dragon flies straight towards the bandit, crashing through the door and knocking him out. Shiro rushes into the outhouse and begins calling Gonza's name, who quickly replies. Shiro karate chops the lock of his cell and frees him, and Gonza runs into his arms, terrified and still crying. Shiro tells him that they will head back to the village immediately. But just as he gets out of the building, he finds the bandits running away in panic. He sees a bunch of tentacles rising above the fortress wall, and he is pretty sure that it is not Clay. He stops a bandit and asks what is going on, and learns that the lake demon has attacked them. Shiro doesn't fully believe the bandit, but he decides to go and deal with the monster quickly. He asks Gonza if he can head back to the village himself, but the boy is too terrified to let go of him. Shiro realizes this too and asks Gonza to hold as tight as he can. He runs to the battle zone with a barrier around him and finds that that the lake demon that Clay is fighting is just an oversized sea anemone. Shiro scans the monster to find that it is a B-rank monster called Dark Anemone, and it has been summoned by Ngash. Shiro turns to face Ngash, who is trembling in fear on the ground. He begs someone to save him, and Shiro Loki wants him to become monster feed. However, as the monster attacks Ngash, he uses a barrier to protect him from taking too much damage. Shiro decides to arrest the merchant and question him later, and tells Clay that they need to get out of here now. Clay is having a hard time dealing with the monster because of its endless tentacles, so Shiro decides to make the fight easy for him. He uses a powerful ice magic to freeze the Dark Anemone in its place, and Clay is impressed. However, Shiro tells him that the job is not yet done, and they need to crush the monster's brain to really kill it. Clay immediately charges up a powerful punch and hits the monster in the face. But instead of killing it, the punch triggers a self-defense mechanism in the monster. It straightens its frozen tentacles and launches them towards Shiro, who doesn't have enough time to create a barrier. He somehow blocks the direct attack using his staff, but the force is enough to throw him and Gonza over the wall. Shiro grabs Gonza and tosses him high up so that B can catch him, while he falls into the poisoned lake instead. As he starts drowning in the poisoned water, Shiro thinks that this is the end for him. He feels that he could not abandon someone in need and instead threw away his life. That does not make him sad, but he feels that now he cannot do so many things that he really wanted to. Luckily, the black-haired K-pop god sees him drowning, and he decides to bail him out this time because Shiro is having a really good impact on this world. As Shiro starts thinking about all the different food items he wanted to make with soy sauce, a voice calls out to him. However, he doesn't pay attention to that voice and keeps thinking about his friends and his custom-made scissors that he still has not got. The person calling him gets impatient when Shiro keeps ignoring them again and again, so they yank him out of the water. Shiro is shocked to see that the one who rescued him is a white Pegasus, who tells him not to die on her. Shiro doesn't understand what is going on, so he introduces himself, and the Pegasus introduces herself as Hoffel. Shiro remembers that name, but he has forgotten where he heard it. He starts making small talk with Hoff, asking if this place is her home, and then apologizes for falling into it. Hoff tells him that it is a good thing that he fell inside because the water of the lake has suddenly started getting purified. The plants near the lake also revive, and Shiro can't believe his eyes. Hoff tells him that it was all because of him. She explains that a long time ago, the magic element of the lake got stagnant, and because of that, she became weak. With her last bit of strength, she created the Ivor flowers to keep the lake purified, and as a result, her body turned to stone. The Ivor flowers lived even after her, purifying the lake, but then Ngash came and polluted it on purpose. However, when Shiro fell into it, he absorbed the poison and helped Hoff get free from her petrification. With that, Hoff takes Shiro back to his friends, and he tells them that the Pegasus god saved him. However, no one except him can see or hear Hoff, and she thanks Shiro for helping her before disappearing. With that, Shiro and others return to the village and reunite Gonza with his people. Next, Shiro creates a circle using some magic stones and tells Clay to stand inside it with him. Clay has his doubts about it, but he decides to trust Shiro, who activates the magic circle that teleports him directly to Belmanent's mansion. There, he quickly whips up an antidote for Ivor poisoning, and Mule gets cured of the poison just from one sip of the medicine. Everyone starts crying tears of joy on this occasion, but Shiro's work is not yet over. He goes back to the village that is being rebuilt from scratch and tells the chief that he turned in Ngash to the local lord along with a lot of evidence, so he will never get out of jail again. The village chief is moved to tears on hearing this and asks Shiro how can they ever repay him. Shiro has an idea about it, and he starts by giving the chief a demo. He puts butter and soy sauce on a steamed potato and tells the chief to try it. He is immediately blown over by its taste, and then Shiro starts his business pitch. He asks the chief to sell all of their soy sauce fruits to him, and they can use the money to expand the fields growing these fruits. The old man agrees to that, but tells Shiro that he won't be able to use all the fruits. Shiro reveals that he plans to make soy sauce popular in big cities, and then it will become a specialty of their village. With that, he treats everyone to the soy butter potatoes and then heads on his way. He reunites with Clay after that, and as they are talking about the mission, Hoff suddenly descends before them. Shiro is taken aback to see her, but then Hoff shocks him even more by turning into a pretty girl and declaring that she is going to join his group now. Shiro and Clay are baffled by this, and Clay asks her why would a god want to travel with an outrageous human. Hoff replies that she has stayed in one place for too long, and now she wants to explore the world. She feels that it will be fun if she hangs around Shiro, and in return, she is willing to let him ride her, but only as a horse, while Hoff is really excited about the journey. Shiro is pretty sure that things are going to be more troublesome for him from now on. Soon after that, Shiro returns to the city and visits the blacksmith to talk about the scissors he had ordered. The chief blacksmith tells him that thanks to the high-quality Ildrite ore he brought, he won the sword-making competition, and now he can devote all his time to make the greatest pair of scissors in the world. Shiro happily leaves the shop after hearing that, and outside, he finds Hoff waiting for him. She asks if he got what he wanted, and when Shiro replies that the blacksmith will take some time, the kinky flying horse mommy replies that she can whip him to make him work faster. Shiro asks her not to whip anyone, so Hoff drops the idea and asks him to treat her to some soy butter potatoes. He replies that she just ate one, but Hoff tells him that it is a thing of the past. She starts bantering with B over who can eat more soy butter potatoes, while Shiro is regretting the decision of bringing her along. Just then, the furry from the guild arrives there and invites him for a meeting. There, he tells Shiro about a material gathering competition that the guild organizes each year and asks him to participate in it. Hoff is interested in the competition, but Shiro tells the furry that he is satisfied with just the quests to gather materials. However, Furry and Area tell him that Lord Belmanent personally told them that he would like Shiro to take part in the competition. They reveal that Belmanent sponsors the competition, so they have to listen to his requests. Shiro also realizes that he should not turn down the request of the local lord, so he agrees to take part in the competition, much to the delight of the two furries. A few days later, the competition starts and the guild master begins explaining the rules to the bunch of excited adventurers. He starts by unveiling a portrait of Belmanent's family and says that the lord wants to surprise his wife who has recently recovered. That is why he wants the adventurers to find the 7-colored wool from the rainbow sheep. All the adventurers are excited to hear this, but Shiro is a bit confused because he has never heard about that material before. The guild master then explains that the 7-colored wool is really rare, and everyone should find out more about it before the competition begins. However, he forbids them from taking help from anyone else. He declares that this is a competition to test the gathering abilities of the adventurers, so they are all rivals. He tells everyone to hit up the library to find more information and rent horses or carriages if they need one. He also forbids people from helping out their friends, and Clay realizes that none of them can tag along with Shiro. He suggests him to use the teleportation spell to quickly find the rainbow sheep, but Shiro is against the idea because he wants to play fair so that the losers don't complain when he wins. Shiro then says that he can't even take B along with him, and the baby dragon immediately starts crying. He keeps begging Shiro to take him along, but he replies that it is against the rules of the competition, so he can't do that. B doesn't take no for an answer and keeps throwing a tantrum until Hoff hugs him tightly and puts him to sleep within seconds. Shiro is surprised to see that and asks Hoff how she managed to do that, to which she replies that she just transferred her mana into the baby dragon who fell asleep after being full. She assures Shiro that she will take care of B and asks him to do his best in the competition. He thanks her and immediately rushes to the library, where he uses his magic spell to quickly find information about the rainbow sheep. After that, he runs to the mountain where the rainbow sheep can be found. Shiro doesn't take too long to reach there because of his great speed, but then he suddenly starts thinking about B. He feels anxious because this is the first time in months he has been without his partner. But he is more worried about B and his binge-eating habit when he is stressed. Turns out, B is indeed binge-eating because he misses Shiro. Hoff tells him there is no need to be this sulky and then starts boasting about how she is much faster than Shiro. B gets angry on hearing this and starts beefing with Hoff, who doesn't hold back either. Clay asks them to stop and then tells Hoff that she doesn't need to prove her speed to anyone because she is the fastest. The Pegasus goddess is pleased to hear that, and then Clay praises B's agility and grace as he flies through the sky, pacifying him too. As the two of them resume eating happily, Clay thanks Shiro for telling him to praise the two if they ever got in a fight. On the other hand, Shiro camps for the night, and the next morning, he reaches the base of the mountain where he finds a herd of rainbow sheep grazing. The book he read in the library told him that they were really fast and hard to catch, so he begins wondering how to approach them. Suddenly, he gets an idea and starts making loud sheep sounds. The dumb sheep think that he is one of them and approach him, and Shiro asks them if he can borrow a bit of their wool. One sheep goes towards him and then falls on his lap. Shiro finds the sheep adorable and combs out a tuft of its fur. The other sheep approach him too because they want the same treatment, and as Shiro is collecting their fur, the other adventurers who arrived on the site just then witness the scene that is beyond their imagination. Soon after that, Shiro heads back home having collected more than the required amount of wool. Suddenly, a dragon passes above him and he is reminded of B. who must be missing him a lot. Shiro hurries back to the city, where B runs into his arms and begins wiping his tears and snot on his clothes. Other adventurers are also gathered there, and the guildmaster declares Shiro as the winner because he was the fastest, and also returned with the most amount of wool. Shiro thinks that he can relax now, but the guildmaster has more plans for him. He invites him to his office and declares that they have decided to give Shiro the FB rank, which obviously doesn't stand for Facebook. He explains that the guild has recognized that Shiro is an all-rounder, and they want him to take all sorts of jobs from F rank to B rank. With his unique FB rank, he will be paid differently according to the rank of the job he takes. Shiro is glad to hear that he can take low-level jobs from his old clients for cheap prices, but Grit shocks him by saying that if the quality of the material he delivers is different from what was requested, the price he receives will change too. He explains that if Shiro keeps bringing really high-level stuff and giving it to his customers for a small fee, he will crash the market price. The bear dude tells Shiro that Grit just wants him to get paid fairly, and the roughed-up adventurer starts blushing like a tsundere as he tells Shiro that everyone wants him to be paid well for his hard work. Bear then asks Shiro if he accepts this promotion, and he starts thinking about the impact he has had on the lives of the people around him. Clay asks him to stop thinking so much and accept the promotion with pride. And even Hoff wants him to accept the unique rank that is befitting a unique person like him. Shiro thinks a bit more before accepting the promotion, and Grit gives him the armband to denote his rank. Right at the moment, Aria barges into the room with an emergency news. She tells everyone that a forest worm is heading towards the highway, and it will reach the city soon. Grit realizes that normal adventurers can't stop it, so he asks Shiro and his party to take up the job, which they are glad to do. They soon reach the forest and wait for the forest worm, but they are left speechless when they see that the monster is incredibly huge. They don't understand how they can defeat it, when suddenly, Shiro hears a familiar voice coming from the voice. It turns out to be the elf girl Vel, who is riding the giant forest worm. Everyone is pleasantly shocked to see her, and Vel jumps down from the worm and runs straight towards Shiro, saying that she has been wanting to meet him again. However, Shiro is not letting anything that smells worse than a sewer approach him, and he immediately uses the cleaning spell on her. He then asks Vel why was she riding this giant monster, and she replies that she needed a favor from him, so she decided to bring him a gift. She reminds Shiro that he wanted a ride, so she brought her friend Aloe from her homeland just for him. Shiro immediately spams the cleaning spell on the monster, who buries itself in the ground because it doesn't like being clean. Shiro then thanks Vel for the thoughtful gesture, but says that he can't ride something so big. Vel says that he might like a one-horned horse better in that case, but Hoff replies that a unicorn is basically a normal horse and Shiro doesn't need anyone else because he has her. Vel asks him about the new member of the group, and Shiro invites her to talk over drinks because it is a long story. Once they reach an inn, Shiro tells Vel about the incidents after she left. He talks about how he and Clay formed a party and then got summoned by the Lord, which led them to a lake where they met the flying horse goddess who turned into a woman and joined their group. Vel is not even slightly surprised by this, and instead, she asks Shiro if she can join his group too. Shiro replies that he was going to invite her either way, and even B is happy to have Vel in the group. The elf girl then shows off her gold guild ring, telling Shiro that she raised her rank and became an A-rank adventurer after their last meeting. Clay is impressed by that and invites her for a sparring match someday that Vel gladly accepts. After that, Hoff remarks that the purity of Vel's spirit greatly comforts her. She is about to reveal a secret about her, but Vel requests her to not talk about it right now. Hoff decides to stay silent because she realizes that Vel wants to reveal the secret to her friends on her own. Vel says that if Shiro accepts her quest, she will reveal everything to him right now, and Shiro asks her to spill the tea because he has been waiting for it this entire time. Vel replies that her sister Ludi has fled their village and she wants Shiro to search for her. She explains that Ludi is the village priestess and she has been given the duty of giving birth to their next chief. She was supposed to marry a man and have a child, but instead, she ran away from home. Shiro realizes that he is in the middle of a really heavy political drama now, but Vel continues the story. She talks about how Ludi used to say that she didn't want to marry a man she didn't even love, and she set conditions for marrying. She asked for a beautiful winged horse, but by the time Vel returned with one, Ludi had vanished from the village. Vel says that since Shiro can use a lot of spells, she thought he could find her sister. However, after hearing the entire story, Shiro is not really sure about bringing Ludi back to the village that wants her to marry some random dude. Vel makes it clear that she doesn't want to bring her sister back. Instead, she is hurt that Ludi left without saying anything to her, and she just wants to know her reasons. Shiro decides to help her out, and everyone else is also ready to tag along. Shiro decides to start the search from the village of elves, and Vel leads the group to a forest, saying that once they are in a forest that meets some conditions, she can open a path to the elven village. She only tells Shiro that it is a spatial magic spell, and he begins wondering if it works like his teleport spell. Suddenly, Hoff tells everyone that it will be faster if they ride her. She immediately turns into her horse form and begins acting like the Gojo Satoru of horses, saying that through heaven and earth, she alone is the fastest one. Shiro and his friends can attest to that as Hoff takes them to the middle of the forest in no time. There, Vel prays to the river goddess to open a path to the elf village, and a black vortex appears in front of her. She tells everyone to touch the vortex to come to the village and immediately gives them a demo, vanishing into the vortex. Shiro freaks out on seeing this, but Clay and Bee are not wimps like him. They enter the vortex next, and when Hoff and Shiro are left alone, she asks him to look after Vel, because she is hiding a dark secret behind her bright personality. Shiro finds that hard to believe, but Hoff believes that he can save Vel without much difficulty. With that, she vanishes into the vortex, and Shiro nervously follows her. When he opens his eyes after crossing the vortex, he sees the beautiful and mystical land of elves. Suddenly, Bee and others come there looking for him, and they are all ragged and dirty. They complain that they were really worried when he didn't show up on time, but Shiro thinks that he only took a few seconds. He decides to clean them first when someone suddenly shoots an arrow at him that barely misses him. Soon, more arrows come flying towards them, and Shiro creates a barrier around his group. Vel recognizes the arrows from her village, and just then, the archers come forward, cursing Vel as they ask how dare she enter their sacred space. Seeing this makes Shiro believe Hoff's words about Vel's dark side, and he begins wondering what exactly is that. The leader of the archers curses Vel, asking how dare she bring outsiders into their sacred homeland. Vel explains that her friends are not going to harm anyone, and she just brought them here to help her locate Ludi. The elf douchebag doesn't let her finish her sentence and declares that no one is going to trust her. He says that her filthy and lowly companions should never have stepped on this sacred land. But that statement rubs Hoffs the wrong way. She walks out of the barrier with a menacing look on her face, asking the douchebag if he called her filthy. He is intimidated by her intensity already, and then dark clouds cover the sky. Hoff asks the elf how dare he call a god like her lowly, and then transforms into her real form. The elves are dumbfounded on seeing her, and then Hoff requests air support from Thor and Picachus, all of them. Once the elves get back on their feet with their hair styled into a perm, they fall on their knees to beg for forgiveness from Hoff. She scoffs that the elves have really fallen if they can't recognize her power. Shiro is surprised to see this because when Hoff is in her horse form, only people with enough magic can hear her, and all the elves seem to be talking to her without any difficulty. The douchebag then asks Hoff about her purpose in coming to their kingdom, and Shiro steps up to answer that question. The elves are not so welcoming to him and ask him to introduce himself. Shiro introduces himself and his party, telling the elves that Vel is an important member of their team. The douchebag is impressed on seeing that Shiro is an all-rounder adventurer, and he introduces himself as Lil before offering to guide him to the village. As they head to the village, Hoff tells Shiro that she can sense something really unpleasant in the forest, but she has no idea about what it is. On the way, Shiro and others get baffled by the ethereal beauty of the elven forest, but Clay realizes that the mana in the air is impure, which is causing trouble in breathing. Lil tells everyone that they need to get cleaned before entering the village, and Shiro decides to take up the responsibility to make that happen. He uses his cleaning spell on all the people, and surprisingly, a lot more mana is used in casting the spell. Everyone is cleaned as a result, and they feel the mana impurity around them vanishing. Lil is shocked by this and asks Shiro how did he do that. But Shiro himself is confused about how his spell became so powerful suddenly. However, the bigger question is why is the mana so dense around the village, and he thinks that it is connected to the giant tree in front of them. As they take the path made by branches around the great tree, Vel explains that the tree is the symbol of all elves, and the high elves live inside it. She says that only high elves and those with permission from them can enter the village, and that everyone realizes that Vel is actually a high elf. She admits to that quite nervously and even apologizes for that, but Shiro doesn't understand why everyone is making a fuss about it. Vel explains that high elves are forbidden from leaving their village, and they hold their bloodline and laws above anything else. Shiro asks if people die if they leave the village, and Vel replies that it is not like that. Shiro says that it is all right in that case, because people should break some laws when more precious things are at stake. Vel wonders if she should believe Shiro's kind words, so he tells her that following rules might be the correct thing to do. But old rules make life miserable for everyone when they fail to adjust according to changing times. Vel is moved by his words, but then Hoff decides to throw shade at the elf community in general. She calls the High Elves a narrow-minded species who think that their village is the entire world, and she dislikes the river goddess they worship for the same reason. Bee decides to show her concern by hugging Vel, who breaks into tears on seeing how much her friends care for her. With that, she leads everyone into the palace of the High Elves that is situated inside the World Tree. A pretty maid immediately arrives there to welcome her, and Vel asks her to set up a meeting with her elder brother. While Shiro and others wait for Vel's elder brother to come, he tries out elven tea, which reminds him of matcha. Soon, Vel's brother comes there and Shiro figures out that he didn't get enough nutrition in childhood, which is why he is still a child physically. Vel rushes to hug him, but her brother Orkisto dodges her because she might accidentally crush him. After that, Vel introduces her friends and brother to each other, revealing that he is the governor of this place. Orkisto tells them to skip the formality with him and then greets Hoff with full respect. Shiro keeps staring at the pocket-sized elf, who realizes this and asks if he is curious how a high elf can be so short. Shiro bluntly affirms, and Orkisto tells him that their clan carries a cursed blood in their veins, and this is their reality. Vel gets frustrated at this and starts crying as she says that she wants to break the curse anyhow. Shiro is utterly confused by this, but Orkisto tells him not to mind his little brother, and that piece of information almost sends his mind to the Shadow Realm. Turns out that Vel identifies as a woman, but she has got hardware from both genders. Shiro can't process it at all, but Clay finds it quite believable because such things are common in lizardmen. After that, Orkisto tells the guests to rest well while they are in the village, but before he goes, Shiro asks him the reason for the abnormal mana density around the village. Orkisto is surprised to learn that Shiro can notice that and tells him that the mana density has been rising for the past 6 months, which coincides with the time Shiro found Bee. He asks permission to try something that can help the situation, and Orkisto grants that to him. They go to a balcony where Shiro creates a huge magic stone that fascinates Orkisto, but his guards request him to get back since it might be dangerous. However, Orkisto trusts Shiro fully, and when he is asked to put his hand on the magic stone and activate it, he does that without hesitation. Just as he activates the magic stone, it floats high above the elf village and emits a green light, thinning the mana density and letting everyone breathe easily. On seeing this, Orkisto realizes that Shiro is the man mentioned in the prophecy of the village and immediately kneels before him. He asks the surprised Shiro to come with him to a secret place where they house a stone with an ancient prophecy. It talks about a catastrophic drought that would affect the elves after the sacred blood has faded. However, a person carrying different blood would come into the picture soon, and he would bring life back to the earth. Shiro and Orkisto begin analyzing the prophecy that seems to be talking about the extinction of high elves. Shiro realizes that the different blood is someone outside the elf clan, and he feels that he might be the one to fit the role. Later that night, Vel enjoys the cool breeze now that the mana density has reduced. When Shiro approaches her and asks about the curse of the high elves, she gets upset just thinking about it, so the maid volunteers to tell Shiro all about it. She reveals that the curse refers to a mysterious disease that started appearing in the high elves several generations ago. The disease prevented their bodies from developing properly, and about 50 years ago, it suddenly became much worse. The newborn children could not survive for long, and it appeared that the entire race was cursed. The maid breaks down into tears as she says that they don't know the reason behind the curse, and then falls on the ground, sobbing that she lost her child to the curse too. As Vel comforts her, Shiro quietly wonders what kind of curse could do this. The next day, Orkisto leads Shiro to his mother, the Queen of Elves, who can see the aura he emanates and remarks that he carried a really interesting color with him. Before Shiro can ask her to elaborate, the Queen notices Bee and realizes that he is a baby ancient dragon. She gets up in awe and realizes that Bee chose Shiro to be worthy of traveling with him, and that must be why he has such a unique aura. Bee happily agrees to her statement, and though Shiro is worried that it is not proper etiquette, the Queen tells him that it is perfectly fine. She thanks him for cleaning the mana impurities that had affected her kingdom, but he says that they need to talk about that some more. He asks the Queen if the ground shook 6 months ago when the mana density started rising. The Queen affirms, saying that the earthquake was so violent that it changed the course of their river. Shiro tells her that the earthquake probably awakened some sort of monster, and that is disrupting the flow of mana all over the elven lands. The Queen bows before him and requests him to take care of that somehow, and Shiro promises that he will try her best. He then tells her that there is something even more serious that they need to talk about. Soon after that, he returns to his friends and tells them that he had a serious discussion with the queen. Everyone is eager to learn the details, and Shiro tells them that the different blood mentioned in the prophecies is not him. Everyone is confused by that. So Shiro uses a magic device that prevents sound from leaking outside, because what he is going to say is really shocking. He reveals that he scanned the bodies of the queen, Orchesto, and the maid and found genetic disorders there. Vel gets shocked even before she understands what that means, and Shiro tells her that genetic disorder means that the physical blueprint they inherited from their ancestors has become corrupt. Clay asks him why the hell would that happen, and Shiro decides to ask a question to Vel to get to the answer. He asks her about the maid's husband and learns that she married her own twin brother. Shiro replies that the curse that the elves are inflicted with can be called the Sweet Home Alabama curse, and it is basically their own fault. He tells Vel that the High Elves tried to protect their sacred blood by marrying people of the same bloodline, and anyone who knows a little bit of biology knows how messed up that is. He says that they just need to introduce external DNA into the High Elf bloodline to prevent this from happening. And Vel becomes really emotional on hearing that. She is happy that the solution to their problem is so simple, and once it is applied, freaks like her won't be born. She starts crying and Bee rushes to console her. Clay raises the important question and asks how will they convince the elves to marry people outside their bloodline. Vel says that her mother and brother will listen to Shiro, but she is not sure about other people. Shiro asks Hoff if she can issue a divine order or something to get the elves to listen to him, but she is not interested. She claims that she has no stake in the elves, and if they are about to go extinct, she doesn't care. She declares that gods are fair to all creatures and then asks Shiro if he is going to save every soul he encounters. He replies that he will do whatever he can to help out a friend because that is the right thing to do. He intently stares at Hoff, hoping that she changes her answer, and she tells him that he is far too kind for his own good. She agrees to help the elves, but she doesn't plan to do that herself. Instead, she tells Vel that they need to find the river goddess Libel, because she will have more influence over the elves who worship her. Hoff then asks Vel to stop crying because a god has heard her prayers now. She then turns to Shiro, telling him that since he has requested the services of a god, he should be ready to make a fitting payment. He nervously asks Hoff what she wants, and turns out she just wants 10 butter soy sauce potatoes. Soon, Hoff and Bee take to the skies to find the river goddess Libel. Meanwhile, Shiro and others impatiently wait for them in the forest. Hoff and Bee return to them soon and reveal that they couldn't see any trace of Libel, which disappoints everyone, but Vel is really shocked that their guardian deity has decided to hide herself when they need her the most. Clay replies that with heavy magic surrounding the area, something must be clearly wrong here, and that could be related to the disappearance of the goddess. Shiro also tells Vel that this is not the time to lose hope, and they should gather more information before their next move. He asks her if they have an adventurers guild around here, and she tells him that they have the Deimos Guild here. Clay is surprised to hear that name and tells the curious Shiro that Deimos Guild is among the most reputable guilds in the entire continent. Shiro is pleasantly surprised to hear that, and he tells everyone that they will head to the guild at once. Once they reach the Deimos Guild, which is just a humble cottage in the forest, Clay starts praising it even more. He reveals that it can be called the top guild in the continent because it has the highest average rank of adventurers. However, they barely interact with the outside world, which is why they have earned the nickname of the Phantom Guild. Shiro gets his hopes up on hearing this and begins thinking that he might learn about rare materials from the guild. With that, they enter the guild building and the mommy guildmaster Sara comes there to welcome them. She claims that she has heard a lot about Shiro and Clay, so she wanted to meet them when she learned they were in town. She then suddenly clasps Vel's hand, seductively telling her how worried she was about her. Vel tells her that she is alright, but Sara starts flirting with her even more aggressively, and Shiro decides to move away because the scene is too overwhelming for him. He finds Clay staring at the quest board, and he remarks that there are no strange requests here considering the odd things happening around the place. Shiro looks at the board too and finds that there are many item gathering quests. The one that catches his attention is cat-eared mushrooms, and Sara tells him that they are delicious even when eaten raw. She further informs him that cat-eared mushrooms glow in the dark, and also tells him about its location. However, the high mana density in the air recently has been making gathering them quite difficult. Both Shiro and Clay realize that they should check out the place because it can have clues about the situation, and Vel decides to show them around because she knows the place very well. Later that night, Shiro works on a new medicine, and Bee asks him what does it do. He explains that it is a special potion that he has brewed as an insurance in case something really unexpected happens. The next morning, they head to the guild where Sara hands them over a whole stack stack of quests that are just to collect the cat ear mushrooms. She thanks Shiro because the demand has been increasing a lot lately, and he promises that he will get as many good mushrooms as possible. However, Sara gets worried about him when she finds that his group is not well equipped for the quest. She tells Shiro that it will take a few days to reach the destination, but he tells her that it won't be a problem. The entire group gets on Hoff's back and she takes off. Vel tells her to head north till she spots a huge lake and their destination is right next to it. They fly for some time and soon, the lake comes into view. Shiro gets excited about discovering new materials there, but then Hoff tells him that the mana in the air is getting really thick as they approach the lake. Shiro immediately gives the medicine he made last night to Clay and Vel, telling them that it will help them deal with the dense mana inside the cave they are visiting. Just then, Hoff tells him that she sees a cave and Vel affirms that it is the cave where the mushrooms grow, but something doesn't appear right. As they land next to the cave, they find a bunch of dead monsters on the ground, with their dead bodies changing color and losing all their rights. Vel is worried about what is going on, so she tells Shiro and others to wait while she inspects the cave. Shiro tells her to wait, but Vel doesn't listen to him. And then suddenly, she falls to her knees, unable to breathe. Clay gets worried about her and rushes to help her. Shiro tries to stop him, but it is too late as Clay also gets affected by the extra dense mana coming from the cave. Seeing both his friends struggle to breathe, Shiro pulls out his staff and uses the cleanse spell to reduce the mana density in the air. Thanks to that, the darkened bodies of the monsters vanish completely and Vel and Clay are able to breathe normally again. Shiro is relieved that he managed to save them, but Hoff tells him that the dense mana will fill the air rapidly again. Shiro immediately tells his friends to use the magic item he gave them, and as soon as they activate it, a golden light engulfs them, protecting them from the dense mana around them. By now, everyone has realized that the cause of the dense mana has to be within the cave, and it was what killed the monsters. Shiro knows that he has immunity to the mana density, but he wonders if Clay and Vel will be fine even with the magic tool. However, he doesn't have a magic tool for Hoff, so he asks her to wait for a minute so that he can create one for her. Hoff tells him that it won't be necessary, and then suddenly she transforms into her human self. Only this time, she is really tiny. Everyone is shocked to see this, but Hoff tells them that in this size, she can stick with one of them and stay in the range of the magic tool. She perches on Clay's shoulder and tells him to start moving, and with that, the group enters the dark cave. Shiro uses magic to light it up, and Vel tells everyone to stay close to her or they might get lost. As they walk ahead, she remarks that the place is giving creepy vibes and all they can find inside is dead remains of monsters. Suddenly, they come across a weird bug-type monster, and Clay is surprised to see that there is a monster that can handle such high mana density. Vel tells him that she has never seen this creature before and tries to examine it closely, but the monster spits deadly acid at her, forcing her to take a step back. Clay says that the monster must have adapted to the new circumstances and they need to be careful about it. When suddenly, the group realizes that they are surrounded by more of such monsters. The creepy bugs start moving closer, and one of them attacks Shiro, who decides to stop holding back. He covers his fist in magic and punches the monster away, making it knock out some more monsters on the way. Next, Clay joins the fight and kills a monster attacking him from behind, and then B uses fire breath to burn some monsters to a crisp. Despite that, there are too many monsters and Shiro wants to deal with them all together or the fight will drag on for far too long. He asks Vel if there is any open space in the cave, and she tells him that there is a big area just ahead of them. She immediately dashes towards the area and everyone follows her. The monsters chase after them too, but luckily, Shiro and others reach the open space in time. He notices the monsters reaching close and tells everyone to stick close to him so that they are not caught in the crossfire. Shiro waits for the monsters to get close enough and then uses a powerful barrier that expands in all directions and vaporizes the monsters as soon as they come in contact with it. After his attack is over, all the monsters are gone, leaving only some drop items behind. However, Clay is concerned that Shiro overdid it because his attack opened up the roof of the cave. Anyway, they forget about the damage to the cave and sit down to have a nice lunch. They cheerfully talk about how the real luxury of life is to eat delicious meals in places like these. Shiro tells Vel to get to the topic and asks how deep does the cave run. She tells him that they have reached the halfway mark between the entrance and the altar at the end of the cave. Clay asks if the altar is used to worship goddess Libel, and Vel nervously replies that she has no idea. She claims that the altar is really old and even elves don't know what god it is dedicated to. However, the styling and inscriptions on the altar are not for goddess Libel. Shiro begins thinking hard about it, and he suspects that if the altar is not used to worship a god, It might have been used to seal away something. After that, they resume their journey, and to their surprise, there are no more bug monsters in their path this time. Clay tells everyone to stay alert because he is getting a bad feeling, and just then, Vel tells them that they have reached the altar that is just beyond the arch in front of them. Once they reach the altar, Shiro finds it overrun with huge cat-eared mushrooms, and he forgets about everything else as he begins thinking what would be the best way to cook them. Suddenly, he notices a hole in the wall behind the altar and the rubble from it on the ground. He thinks if it was also caused by the earthquake when he helped Bee hatch, and wonders how can the effects of that reach all the way to the elven lands. Just then, he feels a strong gust of mana hit him and wonders what was it from. Everyone else also felt that, and Hoff tells them that something big is coming and it is really close. Shiro can't see anything nearby, but just then, a drop of acid drops on Vel's clothes and that gives him his answers. He makes the light ball above them brighter and finds that the monster they are facing is a gigantic slug that is clinging to the rooftop. The slug jumps down as soon as it finds that it has been noticed, and starts towering over Shiro and his party. Everyone is ready to attack it at a moment's notice, and then Shiro reads the information about the slug. He finds that it is an S-rank monster that has evolved to live inside the cave. Each part of its body is incredibly poisonous, and it might be dangerous even to Shiro, but its weakness is poison. His friends are shocked to hear about this, and Clay says that he has heard that once upon a time, there was an S-rank dark slug that was filled with incredible poison, and it destroyed an entire kingdom by itself. Vel tells Shiro that they can't fight it by themselves and says they should run away, but he refuses. He says that they can't leave because there is a huge treasure in front of them. Also, he thinks that if they run away now, they won't be able to find clues about the river goddess, and running away from an enemy they can beat is not the right decision anyway. Vel is surprised to hear that they can beat the slug, and Shiro tells her that it is weak to fire, which is Bee's speciality. He then signals Clay to join the fight as well, and he immediately transforms into his kaiju form on hearing this, telling Vel that he should have told her about this appearance earlier. Hoff tells Shiro that she can't help him with the fight, so she will just cheer him on. And hearing this, Vel decides that she is going to stay back and fight alongside her friends. Shiro immediately casts a barrier spell on everyone, and then spells to increase their agility, before telling them to go wild. Bee flies high and attacks the slug monster with a fireball, and in response, the slug starts attacking it with his tentacles. Bee dodges all the tentacles, and at the same time, Clay rushes to attack it from its blind spot. However, the slug notices him and ties him with its tentacles. The tentacles are not strong enough to hold him, and Clay shatters them by flexing his muscles before proudly declaring that he will chop the monster down with his spear. He dashes ahead, cutting the slug's tentacles, but it regenerates them instantly. Bee tries breathing fire at it again, but the slug attacks him, making him lose balance and fall. Shiro and Vel wonder how can the monster deal with two enemies at once when it doesn't even have eyes, but that makes Shiro realize that a monster evolved to live in a dark cave doesn't need eyes at all. He realizes that the antennae on the monster's head are its sense organs and tells Vel to target them. Vel dashes ahead to attack the monster, and Shiro blasts the tentacles aimed towards her. That allows Vel to leap up and chop off the slug's antennae, making it move really slowly. Bee hits it with his most powerful fire attack next, but even that doesn't do much damage to the giant monster. Everyone starts losing hope because even fire can't get past the monster's moist skin. But that makes Shiro realize the traditional method to defeat slugs in the modern world. He pulls out a pot of high-quality salt from his bag because salt can suck moisture out of the slug's body and kill it quickly. He is not happy about wasting salt for anything but cooking, but he turns it into small balls and attacks the slug, melting its skin. The slug tries to flee the scene, but Clay slashes it with his spear, causing it to fall dead. Shiro is glad that they won, but then Hoff tells everyone to look up because the walls of the cave are lined with dark slug eggs. Some of them are already starting to hatch, and Shiro wonders how can they destroy them before they turn into ferocious monsters like their mommy. He reads the description of the eggs and finds that they will die on being exposed to sunlight, and then have a lot of value as alchemy raw materials. He immediately tells his friends to cover their eyes, and then creates a mini-sun inside the cave that instantly kills all the dark slug eggs. However, just as he thinks that their problems are solved, he feels another intense gust of mana, and Hoff tells him that their next opponent might be the most dangerous one they have ever faced. She claims that the dense mana covering this place has vanished, but now she can feel the presence of the goddess Libel. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.